Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, very sorry about the delay, but we are actually going to be having a game for you today. This is the BTS Southeast Asian Series 2. I'm at Lyrical Dota, joined today by Danny Cast, as well as Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. How are you doing today, and are you excited about this game?
I'm super excited just because I haven't casted a Dota game in a while as I've been overseas. But it seems like nothing's really shifted in terms of meta, so we can get back right into things. So luckily for you, I managed to get some information for some of these teams. So Phoenix, as people may or may not be aware, it's mostly of ex-Mineski players. So we've got a couple of their names here that we should be aware of, whereas First Departure, it's First Departure. If you don't know who First Departure is, then you obviously don't watch Southeast Asian Dota. Unfortunately for us, though, in terms of oh goodness, Corrupt Drop is messaging me. In terms of Phoenix, I haven't been able to watch any of their games. So in terms of synergy, we're not really going to be too sure on how they're going to be meshing well as a team, whether it's going to be good or bad. We don't really know. They've only played one game up against a well-known team, which was Space Creators, and they lost that game. But that was in October, mind you.
Well, not a ton of experience playing together, at least in the recent past, but probably beforehand, considering several of them were in that Mineski team, that we're going to end up having at least some amount of awareness of what everybody's doing. I'm really curious because whenever you end up seeing a new team, there's always an option for a lot of really cool stuff to come out from that. You end up creating new storylines with people who end up meshing together better just because of whatever ended up happening elsewhere. But regardless, we're going to be getting right on into this game. Tusk is going to be banned out, as is the Doom and the Dazzle. I feel like Dazzle is pretty much one of those heroes that has there was sort of these weird moments where people were talking a lot about it a lot in Frankfurt, where he was really bad because I think people weren't understanding completely what type of drafts he fit into, and then people basically just doubled down on him in the finals. I think about that first game in the grand finals of OG, where they were just able to do so much work with this hero, clutch Graves at the last second, put him in there as part of a sort of defensive armor, since so many armor drafts have been built around just taking that away. And I think that the hero has really risen to prominence. Also a bit with the rise of Huskar, that combo is always going to be relevant and something you're going to need to keep an eye on. But First Departure here are going to be able to take him out, and also we're not going to be seeing an Alchemist this game. Slardar as a first pick, always as we talk about that negative armor.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of the prime picks so far. And the thing is with the Slardar as well is that he fits into so many drafts. And I'm not too sure if a couple of other teams have been running this, but I've seen a lot of position 4 Slardars in Southeast Asia. So they go for a little bit more of a greedy Slardar, hoping that he's still useful with the amplified damage. He can still be there with the crush, but he's not as prevalent as he would be if he was in that core role. So this Slardar pick, they could really do anything with it, but I think the main idea with the Slardar is that any cores that they pick up to synergize with it means that they're going to be scaling much earlier and harder into that late game scenario. So you're essentially securing that late game scenario if you have that Slardar on board.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, you see that sometimes with the Wind Ranger or something else as one of the other combos that you can throw in there. One of my personal favorites also that we haven't seen a ton has been Medusa occasionally, but that hero feels like it's gone completely out of relevance. But we're going to end up seeing here, out of Phoenix, the Darkseer Winter Wyvern combo. This is just like... I feel like since this patch, this has been like the preeminent combo that almost everybody has tended to go for. You've got the Vacuum into the Winter's Curse, and then follow that up with any other team fight spell. I mean, anything from as big as, you know, a call down from a Gyrocopter or a Light Strike Array coming in from Alina. This is going to be relevant because they're all grouped up together, ready to take a lot of damage very quickly. The only thing that you do need to be careful of course, is that 70% damage reduction that you end up getting to everybody that's affected by Winter's Curse, but not the target of it. So we are going to be seeing the Queen of Pain picked up afterwards, another nice little bit of massive nuke damage coming out there with the Sonic Wave, as well as just a strong laning presence. Huskar also taken. Excuse me, not taken, but banned on out. They don't want to end up running into this. But this is kind of the story of this patch also has been the Huskar consistently getting banned out, as well as the Broodmother.
Yeah, it might... I don't know. It might not actually see a Broodmother banned in C. The hero is really unpopular unless a particular team does run it as a favorable pick. I know in particular both MVP teams love running the Broodmother, so banning the hero is quite popular with them, but Here, we're not going to see the Brood ban. Instead, we're going to have a Ember, Undying, and Bounty Hunter ban. Bounty Hunter, in particular, quite interesting hero. He does manage to give your team a little bit extra pick-off potential, and also that extra gold income, which is the most important thing with that Bounty pick. So Bounty taken off the pool. Phoenix can go for the complete team synergy sort of draft. They got the Gyrocopter, as you said, with the cooldown to now add on top of the combo. With Phoenix, they've got some very good players, and if they can actually get this draft to work in favor early, I actually find First Departure looking to be in a bit of an interesting position. They could have a lot of difficulty in playing around this, because if they get caught out, they're running a lot of squishy heroes in particular. Because Slaughter, even though he's a strength hero, if he's caught in the middle of this in the sprint, he's taking that extra 15% damage, and that could really hurt him, regardless of being a strength hero or not. Phoenix, so DK pickup as that fourth pickup. Is this supposed to be their pushing hero?
Yeah, to me that's what it looks like, and it's interesting to me that they've ended up taking this into an Ancient Apparition, you know, one of the most classic D-push heroes that you're going to have in the whole game. Of course, I think that this whole draft here by First Departure is very capable of dealing with an early push that you might end up seeing out of Phoenix here. Obviously, Gyrocopter is going to be able to scale you well into the late game. You're going to be able to have a good amount of space made for you by the Dragon Knight, but it does feel like if they try and get an early mechanism up on Darkseer, end up trying to push with that early dragon form as well from Dragon Knight, they're just going to get, you know, ice blasted away. And I'm maybe if they're able to take like the mid-tier 1 before Ancient Apparition gets 6, to me that could seem like a pretty strong combo. But what I'm seeing here out of First Departure is that they're very, very aware of the 5-man capabilities that you have coming out from Phoenix's side, and they're going to be looking to try and get a quick blink on Slardar, move around the lanes, keep them pressured out. I'm expecting to see some other type of hero here, maybe a Rubik out of First Departure. They're going to go for an Omni Knight. Whoa, this is not at all what I was expecting. So, like, I was thinking they're just going to go and try and get pickoffs and keep the waves pushed, but this looks like they might almost want to fight into this.
I honestly was thinking the exact same thing as you. It just looked like they would have been able to just try and go for the movement, but Omni Knight pickup, I'm honestly shocked about this Omni Knight pickup, but as you said, I think they do want to man fight into Phoenix. It's scary though, because the issue with Omni Knight is that you're only going to have the repel on one hero, and even though you have that repel, Winter's Curse still goes through your repel.
Definitely.
So what's the deal with this Omni Knight? There's not much physical damage coming out, so Guardian Angel's not really going to be a factor.
I'm wondering almost if they're thinking about like the late game sort of trading towers and stuff and wanting to get that Aghanim Scepter up on the Omni Knight or something like that. It just seems so at odds with what the rest of First Departure's draft is. But clearly they have a plan based around it. Maybe we're going to end up seeing that sort of off-lane Omni Knight that you occasionally see, and this might be the end. That's a kind of an interesting point as well, is the idea that with the Omni Knight and Repel, Gyrocopter is somewhat mitigated in terms of his effectiveness. So I kind of feel like maybe now you end up bringing the Queen of Pain down to the, or excuse me, she stays mid obviously, but then moves on down to the enemy safe lane and tries to get a gank up there. And one of the big problems you end up having when you try to gank a Gyrocopter is he can sometimes just turn around and kill you. When you have a Repel on top of you, you don't necessarily have that problem as much. And with Winter Wyvern being the only person that can really heal Gyrocopter, that's the easiest setup for Sonic Wave of your life. I just don't know if it's going to end up being enough. And like, the other thing here as well that we didn't mention at all is I kind of would have almost rather seen out of the Dragon Knight pick maybe a Shadow Fiend, considering its Radiant side, and he was available, but not going to pick that one up, instead going for him, and instead we're also going to see Phoenix go for the Rubik. Very interesting drafts.
This is very, very... It's peculiar, but welcome to Southeast Asian Dota. You see a lot of unorthodox picks. Phantom Assassin will be the final pick for First Departure. You can now see some synergy between Omni Knight and Phantom Assassin, but it kind of feels like they're putting all the eggs in the Phantom Assassin basket because they picked up this Omni Knight. They want to fight with the Phantom Assassin, but the moment Phoenix has a way to deal with the PA, I think that's going to be it for First Departure. They're putting everything into the Miracle basket here. But I guess one thing you also have to keep an eye on is that if you've been watching First Departure games, you know that First Departure loves to put everything into the Miracle basket. It's essentially the Miracle show. So can First Departure actually get this first episode running, or is it going to be cut off air by the first episode?
That is definitely the question that we're going to hope to answer within the next couple of minutes here. Unfortunately, we have been having a couple of ping issues. As we said at the very beginning, there were some issues getting everybody on into the draft, but it looks like things are finally going to be moving on here. I'm going to try and do as best I can at this point in time with the introductions, but unfortunately, it does look like several people are not tagged up as they normally are. So, Too Little Too Late is going to be playing the Ancient Apparition Miracle, or Makisa is going to be playing the Phantom Assassin. We have this lovely, creepy smiley face on the Slardar. Kal is going to be playing the Omni Knight. And last but not least, over here to the side is Quatar Vindicte Dix, who's going to be playing the Queen of Pain. Apparently, they're having some Steam issues, and would you care to introduce the fine folks over there on Phoenix?
Yes, absolutely. So on the side of Phoenix, who is, as we said before, a couple of ex-Mineski players. On the Radiant side for today, we have yours truly on the Darkseer. I'm not actually playing the Darkseer, but that is fine. Purpose on our DK, which was a very interesting pick. Now we'll see if this DK does work out for them in the end. JYC on our Rubik. We had Hehe's on our Winter Wyvern. And finally, in the bottom lane, we have... Oh, okay, now I see why you actually gave me Phoenix's team, because I cannot pronounce this gyrocopter's name. If someone would like to, if someone would like to translate this, I would very much appreciate it. But
We'll call him Mysterious. That will be his name for this broadcast, at least at this point in time. Gyrocopter is going to be playing Gyrocopter down here in the bottom lane for Phoenix. Always good when that ends up happening. Very sorry that we weren't able to get that before the draft. But yeah, you mentioned there the Dragon Knight, kind of an interesting pickup. It is going to be, at least at this point in time, just an Ironwood branch on him. So he's looking to pick on up that quick bottle ASAP. Might end up going on back for a salve at the early stages if he takes a decent amount of damage. But at least at this point, he's going to be sort of just sitting there looking for his moment. In terms of the mid lane matchup, it's going to be Queen of Pain against Dragon Knight. Kind of a difficult one there.
I wouldn't be surprised if First Departure actually puts Miracle into that mid lane, because they typically put him in the mid lane, regardless of what hero he plays. But it wouldn't be uncommon for them just to chuck him into the safe lane if they really want to get farm on that PA. But I think one of the more unique things about PA as a carry is that PA can contribute a little bit more to the team just because he has the chance of getting those coup de grace crits. And if you can get lucky, you can get some really nice kills on that hero. But again, it's going to be RNG based. So I think for First Departure, they're going to have to cross their fingers and hope that they can get those early crits and early kills onto Miracle, because that might be enough to propel the PA forward to really jump onto Phoenix.
God, Cal, you're killing me here. It's all good as we continue to move out. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic there, and always very cool to be able to, you know, throw your sort of hopes to the winds and hope for the RNG to be going. But you know, obviously it doesn't always end up working out, and maybe thinking that this time around they really want to at least have the opportunity to. And it's worth noting that, you know, PA does a good amount of damage even without the crits. You just need one or two for it to really sort of go over the edge into ridiculousness. And at least in this point with the Rubik picking up a first level of Phoenix Averzi. Thank you very much, Corrupt Dropper. Oh, look at that. We just know who everybody is. Omni Knight ends up disconnecting yet again. But yeah, the other thing here that we should talk about is for Phoenix, they have one healing that's a part of their kit, and then another healing that usually is sort of by virtue of itemization in the Darkseer, considering he usually ends up picking up that mechanism. And also, I mean, to some extent, Dragon Knight as well, he ends up getting that passive health regen. It's usually not super influential, but I think that it's something to consider throughout these little engagements here, as well as the game ends up getting started and you end up getting Ancient Apparition to level 6. You're probably going to need to be able to be super cognizant of when you end up trying to heal, and you end up doing it early in the engagement as opposed to saving that mechanism, because if you end up getting hit by the Ancient Apparition Blast, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to, you know, sort of have that sustainability that you're relying upon.
But the thing is, though, after the Ice Blast procs and everything's already been done and dusted, they have decent sustain. So if the pushing does happen to go for a little bit longer, then they can stay in lane for that little bit extra. Whereas First Departure, all their sustain is going to be in Cal, and it depends on his mana pool. If he can keep the mana pool up, then he's going to help his team to stay in lane to go for that counter push, or even go for their own sort of push. For First Departure, though, now let's just go over their draft really quickly here. So their draft, which we originally thought was going to be built around split pushing and moving around the map and getting pickoffs, ended up being some sort of, we want to man fight you with that PA sort of pick. If this style backfires, can they really fall back to that split push style? I think picking up the PA, it doesn't really let you do that because the hero is just not mobile enough.
Yeah, you really have to be able to, like itemize around it. Eventually getting the boots of travel makes it somewhat worth it. But the other thing that I always think about when I think about counter pushing and split pushing is going to be being able to keep waves pushed out. And that's something that First Departure, uh, again, depending upon itemization, are going to be able to do somewhat. I wonder if we end up seeing a Battle Fury on the PA this game just by virtue of that at the later stages. It's not necessarily the greatest item on the hero because you end up, like, part of the reason that you end up picking PA is to be able to fight early, as you alluded to multiple times earlier on. And if you go for a Battle Fury, that really slows down your ability to fight early. You end up turning into much more of a farming carry. And you can end up making that work, but it does feel like if you're going to be doing that, then why don't you just end up going for, something else like a Ember Spirit potentially, or, a Gyrocopter in your own right. But I think that, with the Omni Knight there, being able to throw on out a Purification, you can push out a Creep Wave pretty quickly. Also, the Queen of Pain, if you end up going for an Agnum Scepter, you're going to be able to toss on out those Sonic Waves on pretty much whenever you get a chance to get to a lane. So I think that they can, but it's going to depend on what sort of itemization they end up going for. Time will tell, really, and it's going to depend. I think that they can, is sort of my end rule answer there.
I think they can if Cal comes back. That might be the biggest factor here if we actually get a game.
Yeah, most definitely. On the other side, Phoenix also, they have a good ability to be able to keep those waves pushed out. Also, Rubik with the Fade Bolt there, you're going to be able to have probably one of the best counter pushing abilities in the game, along with the Splinter Blast coming out from the Winter Wyvern. And I think that they're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on these lanes of First Departure without necessarily having to stay there for an incredibly long period of time. And so I kind of like Phoenix's draft a little bit better just because it feels like they have a more cohesive group up mentality. Like, they have a more cohesive draft in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. I feel like all of their heroes are trying to accomplish the same thing, whereas First Departure kind of has a mixture of those. That is also going to be if we see the normal Omni Knight. And based upon his item build, it does look like he's going to be going for that offlane build, which is a little bit different than we normally see, where you end up getting several more points in Degen Aura and you just try and sort of run at the enemy team and make sure that you're able to sort of get a good amount of experience and maybe some amount of gold there as well. It's worth noting, Omni Knight has 5 armor when he ends up starting out. He's a pretty tanky dude.
Well, he is a strength-based hero, so I guess that's what you kind of expect. And also being melee, it helps him out as well. Oh dear, we have 5 minutes left before we unpause.
Well,
this is very normal NC, by the way. Very, very normal to have connection issues like this.
Cool.
Oh, so Wedding Crash is okay, so Wedding Crash on Queen of Pain and Lubby is Too Little Too Late. I'm not too sure if I'm going to remember all these names. I'll try.
Hero names will be will
try.
be given. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I always Omni Knight is such an interesting hero in terms of the way that he ends up interacting. Of course, as you mentioned, if he ends up getting the mana pool, he can really be a strong force in terms of his ability to just be one of the more dynamic heroes in the game. And likewise, you constantly have to be able to sort of isolate him in the beginning of the team fights, pick him off. And that's also something that's kind of worth noting. For Phoenix's side, they have a lot more sort of just general AoE, but not the highest burst damage in the world on one individual hero. You think about the way that cooldown ends up working, and it is a huge amount of damage if you end up hitting it onto several different heroes, but it's not something like Alina Laguna Blade or any of those other types of abilities. Of course, Winter's Curse is probably the best way to be able to deal with the Omni Knight. If they're able to get that on top of him with a couple of other heroes around him, probably that PA, it's going to be the sort of the dream scenario for him. And that's another thing to think about that we hadn't really touched on too much earlier, is that Winter's Curse with PA is kind of one of the best possibilities as well. Is if you end up being able to get a crit on your own team, it's kind of best you could hope for.
It's unfortunate to say the least. I guess one cute thing you could really do with the Omni Knight is if Cal is nearby and he's not caught in the Winter's Curse and someone's being cursed, he could Guardian Angel and mitigate all the physical damage. So you could save a teammate in that regard, but this Omni Knight pick, I'm very much... This is so risky. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just a very, very risky pick. High risk, high reward. Because I've never seen a very successful Omni Knight hero or a Omni Knight game, unfortunately. I think it's just because players not really wanting to experiment too much with this hero, because I think with all the... I guess the best way to describe it, the fact that I haven't actually seen any ones that are successful, I think that's why teams don't really want to practice it, because if you practice a new hero, you're investing time into something that might not pay off.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, this tournament is going to be single elimination. So if they end up losing in this next set here in the best of three, they are going to just be out of the tournament, which would be probably a pretty big shock. It's worth noting that Phoenix was very much the underdog going into this one, with I think at some places it was a 4-1 odds in terms of the sort of possibility of them moving on. But also, that probably has a lot to do with the fact that they just haven't played too many games, and it would be a pretty big shock, I would imagine, to see First Departure drop out this early on in the tournament, considering it's just the first round. But regardless, we're looking like he's back on Steam. Might end up getting the game pretty soon here. Yours truly still sitting up here on the top in the darks here, and if we could pontificate a bit more about where we think the game is going to end up going in the next couple of minutes, seems like there's going to trade off runes. It does look like it's going to be, at least for the time being, the gyrocopter down here. Do you think that we just still end up seeing the Winter Wyvern and the Rubik move on down to the bottom and help him out, or are we going to see some more of those sort of early shenanigans that you occasionally see in the sort of dual mid lane stuff?
I honestly think the supports on Phoenix could try and go for rotations and maybe secure a couple of kills. I think if you can grab a kill onto purpose, the DK, or grab a kill for him in that mid lane, then you can really make that mid lane much easier for the DK, and he can definitely dominate that lane. I think that's the thing with DK, he's quite slow in that mid lane, but if you do get him some kills, then that might be enough to you can leave him on his own after that, because he's incredibly tanky, and he can also sit in lane quite well. So just help him out a little bit, then it should be okay. Gyrocopter, he'll be going up against, as I said, maybe a solo Omni Knight, and obviously your Gyrocopter is going to be absolutely fine in that matchup. So I think Phoenix, they could leave the Gyro and go for rotations to help out the other lanes and really just harass First Departure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we will see if that is indeed what they end up doing. Hopefully you end up seeing that. I think also we've sort of vaguely touched on it at various points throughout this long introduction. The Ancient Apparition getting levels, that's something that's going to need to be pretty highly prioritized, I would imagine. And considering that, this is going to be a PA, Queen of Pain, and the Omni Knight, I kind of feel like actually Slardar doesn't have the best place in the world here unless he ends up sort of going for a roaming role, which would be pretty strong or pretty odd. So I'm wondering if he's going to end up sort of moving on down there, and then it ends up being the dual offlane with an Omni Knight Slardar, and then you end up seeing the Ancient Apparition head up to the top lane and just sort of do a lot of pulls consistently. I don't know if that's what they're going to end up doing. I mean, if they wanted to, honestly, they could probably do something as crazy as an aggro tri-lane, but with them just sitting over here by the tier 1 tower mid, it seems a little bit hard to call at this point as the dots start to fly.
Yeah, this is a disadvantage though if you're running a draft that has no hero that's able to just go around with no points of EXP. And as you said, Slardar Omni Knight, it could work out, but it's a bit risky. Depends if Phoenix does respond to it, I suppose. If they bring in both supports to shut down the Slardar and the Omni Knight, and both heroes can be very important cores for First Departure to help really get that PA online with both of their spells. They could try and roam. Actually, if Slardar does try and go into the mid lane or whatever lane that Mikasa is in and tries to go for a gank there, the Stifling Dagger is really good setup for a Slardar crush. So there is a chance that they could maybe just have the Slardar help get some kills on the PA, or at least harass out the hero that's in lane to make it a little bit easier for First Departure's safe lane or mid lane or whatever lane this is going to be for Miracle.
Well, and with the Dragon Knight up there so far, Miracle currently 3-5 games on Phantom Assassin. Very interesting. With that early, being up there in the front, being a melee hero, there's a pretty good possibility that they'd be able to catch him out there, particularly considering, well, they do have a ward over here. All right, sorry, out of time. Looks like the game is going to commence regardless of whatever else is going on. So unfortunately, Dota 2 is going to start. They're going to have to do a little bit of sort of microing here for a little while. This isn't something that you ever want to see in a game, but unfortunately it does sort of end up happening that way from time to time.
No, this is not too uncommon for First Departure. It does happen every now and again for them. So I think they're used to it at this point. So we'll see what they really do with Cal. If they're going to keep him in lane or if they're going to prioritize a single hero in that off lane. Depends if they really want to get those levels on Cal. If they really do, they could probably just have the Slardar roam around and have Slardar micro Cal Just get those levels. Once he goes for a gank, then he can just try and go for a quick jump on them.
And sort of hoping at a certain point in time that you're going to be able to, get him back on into this game. And of course, it does end up being a little bit strange just because you're not going to be able to buy items on this hero, at least for an extended period of time. But yeah, it does look like he is going to be heading on down there. So a duel off lane currently with the Slardar and AFK Omni Knight. We're also going to be having the Queen of Pain head on up to the top area as well. Ancient Apparition might be sticking around mid to help secure himself this mid lane. We did see the Rubik check out over here behind the back, but didn't end up going for anything super spectacular, as we see another camp blocked on up in the top area to make sure that there aren't any side pulls going on. So all across the board, everything looking hunky-dory and normal, and at least at this point in time, it looks like it's going to be a PA versus a Dragon Knight in the mid lane.
So, in your opinion, who do you think would come out on top in this mid lane scenario? Would it be with the PA with the constant daggers harassment, or would it be Purpose who's going to have the Bottle Crow with the Breathe Fire harassment?
Well, I think
like the DK.
Yeah, I kind of would agree with you there. I don't think that you're going to end up shutting down the PA. Just because, like you mentioned, there's always going to be the dagger for harassment, but also the dagger for sustain or getting last hits. So we do end up seeing Call get a little bit caught out here. He does end up purifying, turn himself back around. The Slardar stun is going to be there, and as Omni Knight ends up reconnecting to the game, there was an automatic pause, it looks like. They are going to be able to unpause in just a second as Omni Knight apparently back in the game. We did it, guys. He's here. Now needs to run away really quickly because it looks like Rubik might be able to kill him. Needs one more auto attack. Isn't going to be able to get it as the Slardar ends up soaking up a little bit of that damage. They trade off a bit more. So kind of frustrating, but they do have a salve for the Omni if they want to end up giving it to him. Might just be able to sort of soak up a little bit more damage here and possibly bait out a little bit of an overextension. But yeah, I was talking about the damage reduction that you get from Breathe Fire, 25% at level 1, and it continues to increase. That's not going to be as effective against Queen of Pain, or excuse me, Phantom Assassin, because she always has the option to be able to last hit with Dagger.
But it does limit the chance of Miracle potentially trying to go for a kill under Purpose, because it lowers the amount of damage that he throws out, and also lowers the coup de grace damage.
Totally.
Just because of the lower damage. So I think for Purpose, he's been feeling relatively safe in this mid lane, whereas looks like Cal as well as Aslan are going to go for the rune, whereas Rubik, he's fine. He's absolutely fine. No way for First Departure to catch. I think another thing to note as well for First Departure is they don't have the best heroes when it comes to catching their targets. They don't have any supports that have some good range disables, slows. They've only got the PA dagger and to a certain degree the Slardar Crush, but until he has that blink dagger, he's really not going to be too keen in going into all of these heroes because there's so much range on the side of Phoenix. They've got so much kite ability. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. They're really going to be able to sort of create that separation if they need to, and obviously as well, Winter Wyvern, great for being able to, slow down the enemy heroes. You've got the long-range initiation there with Arctic Burn as well as Splinter Blast, which are great slows, and Rubik being able to instantly catch somebody as well with the lift. Yeah, it does feel like First Departure are definitely going to need to itemize. We do end up getting a Crush here, a little bit of extra damage. Ooh, the Purification coming in as well, and now the Repel. He might be able to find this kill, but is he going to end up paying for it? That's the question I have. The Crush ends up connecting. One more right click, that's going to be First Blood going down on top of the Rubik as the creepy smiley face Slardar ends up running away, not going to be able to catch him, and that's really the danger that you end up having with this Omni Knight here in a dual offlane. Very, very interesting start to this game.
That was surprising that Phoenix were so far forward in the Rubik's positioning, because if he just gets caught out by these heroes, you're going to be nuked by a Crush, you're going to get hit by a Purify as well. So for Phoenix, they're going to be a little bit more aware of these of the damage coming up from these two, whereas too little too late almost gets caught into a corner, but yours truly, unfortunately, won't be able to have vision of him. They will have the Queen of Pain jump onto him to do a little bit of damage, but it looks like, they should get the kill here. So Waiting Crash could be very happy with the Darkseer kill. Yours truly, unfortunately, getting a little bit too... he pops the salve. He's still being hit by the dagger, though. And is he going to tick out? No, looks like he's fine. Very close.
God, that was really close. Really well played by him as well to pop that salve at the last second. I thought that they were for sure going to be able to get that with the Chilling Touch as well as the blink forward. It definitely looked like that was going to be a possibility as we get a little bit more damage. A lift up on top of Kyle. Not going to be able to get him on this bottom lane. We do now have Slardar in here as well. With the DD round up, he's going to be able to start hitting away onto the Winter Wyvern. Turnaround Purification, that's going to be enough to get that kill. And looking for a little bit more now. Chasing on after the Gyrocopter. All this damage coming out and just going to be able to get away. 30 HP was all that was left on that Gyrocopter and not going to be able to stay alive. That was a really nice little initiation there by First Departure. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get both of the kills.
If they got both, that would have been so clutch, but what happens, happens, and you already see the small disadvantage of having the sprint. Did he sprint towards the end of that? I think it ran out of duration, but he still took too much damage from the rocket barrage. I wasn't too sure. It looked like he was still in the sprint animation.
Yeah, it definitely could have been. And the other thing is that with the sprint animation that you're talking about there, you're able to... Ooh, Purpose here is going to get jumped on a little bit. Turns around with the ulti pop. That's going to be a Slither and Crush coming on down. Rubik is in the area as well, though, so I think that they back on out. Courier is actually getting a little bit fresh as they end up backing out yet again. We do have a Crush again in a second. If they end up critting here, I think that this is a kill, but it is going to be a little bit dangerous. Slardar dropping low, trains to aggro on over to the PA. She's going to get that natural evasion to keep away a little bit longer, but she does end up going down. Not going to get killed by the dragon herself, but still so many creeps as well as being under tower. This is a really dangerous situation. Rubik doesn't have any more mana. I think that this is still going to be fine for Slardar as he ends up walking away from that one. Trade mid laner for mid laner as the Dragon Knight ended up dying first. So a little bit better to the side of First Departure on the end of that one.
Very surprised there were no TP reactions by any of the heroes on Phoenix. They could have brought in the Winter Wyvern to get an extra slow, maybe even secure an extra kill. Maybe even the Darkseer to a certain degree could have come in with the teleport scroll, but it looks like Phoenix putting more emphasis on the lanes rather than going for any sort of reactionary play. I feel like they missed out on a small opportunity to get kills just because of those TPs.
Well, and a couple more rotations now from First Departure. They're going to catch out Purpose. Ooh, nice stun there. Able to make that happen. A couple of quick slows as well as the body blocks. Really nice play here all around at this point in time by First Departure. They're going to be able to get that kill. Did rotate 5 heroes mid for that, though. And you kind of got to ask yourself, is that worth it for the mid lane? I guess for the Dragon Knight, it seems like it might be.
But then again, you're leaving a Darkseer free in the top lane. He's actually cutting the creep wave and doing some damage to the tower. Then down bottom, you still got the Gyrocopter free farming as well. I think it's a little too early for First Departure to group up. They get the kill under the Darkseer though. Oh goodness, was not expecting that.
He just ended up walking in there. Unfortunately, the Queen of Pain getting the Invis rune, that's just a little bit too good luck there for them to be able to make that happen. And you could potentially say that the Darkseer might have been able to know that that was going on and they're roaming on up to the top lane. They did pass by a Radiant Ward, it's worth noting, right over here. But they still were not able to sort of react quickly enough. And Queen of Pain picks up a pretty easy kill. But that was going to be the first instance of the Sonic Wave used. Pretty nice there to be able to find a kill on the enemy offlaner. And all across the board, things coming up First Departure's way. 1,000 gold lead as well as an experience lead of about 2K. And even though they end up rotating around a lot, they're kind of getting back to lanes fairly quickly too.
So, but do you think the First Departure with some of these heavy commitments into ganks, do you think it's worth it, or do you think at some point they're going to have to try and focus on the lanes for some of these heroes? Because, as you said, very, very early, is it worth it? I think that's the major thing. Does it pay off for them?
Well, we end up seeing another jump on forward here. They're going to be able to maybe catch onto the Gyrocopter. A lot of damage. Purification, turn it back around. Repel is down as well. They're going to be able to take on out this Gyrocopter, I think. Does end up going down with the rotation from the PA, securing that one. Now diving after the Rubik as well. That is a really nice Cold Embrace, going to keep him alive, but the Purification is going to be too much for that to handle. There's the Guardian Angel committed as well. They're so comfortable diving under towers for this, and they end up picking up 3 kills. You know, if there was any question of it being worth it before, I think that answered it. It definitely is, at least at this point. You could have made the argument earlier that it wasn't, but now with nobody really being able to rotate in to help him out either, yeah, it's looking good for First Departure.
So the early aggression here for First Departure, as you said, is working out quite nicely, whereas for Phoenix, they're still sitting in their lanes. They really want to get those levels, and also there's farm onto the Darkseer to grab that early mechanism. The DK, now, we don't see a lot of DK. What do you do with a mid DK? Is he supposed to sit in lane, grab levels, and then go push? Is he waiting for an item pickup? We don't see this hero very much. And I guess there's no definitive way to play a DK at this point because of that.
Yeah, I think that this hero, it really thrives in being able to be a part of the early push lineups and being able to use the first couple of ultis in particular when you have a hero that roams around and ganks to that you're up against to start to apply that poison damage to the tower. And particularly you end up getting a mechanism up on your offlane. That's what you're going to be looking for, and then you can group up together and start taking towers. But what's ended up happening is now you have this Dragonite who's going to be under-leveled to a large extent, currently level 8 versus the level 8 of the PA as well. As they end up jumping forward again onto this Gyrocopter. He is going to end up dropping very low on the Slardar, but the Purification comes out yet again. That's going to be another kill. Such a big A Blast coming in, but they're not going to be able to find that one. Oh, that was the A Blast from the Dire, of course. I think that it's all a part of like wanting to get together with your first couple of items, maybe a level 6 on Winter Wyvern, and take a fight that is going to end up working out well for you. But unfortunately, all of their sort of grouping up and being able to make that happen has really been cut short by the really good rotations by Ferd's Departure, as we end up seeing Slardar maybe going to end up going down, doesn't end up dropping very low. One last right click from the Winter Wyvern is going to get it. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, that was a very, very heavy commitment to just kill off a Slardar. They popped a wall for that. And this is a level 6 Swarm on a Darkseer. When do you normally see this hero pick up the wall this early?
Yeah.
I feel like it's just more of a desperation spell for Phoenix. They're trying to recover what bad of an early game that they currently have. And do you think at this point now Phoenix has to try and go for these smoke rotations, get those couple of pickoffs, while still trying to accumulate these items and then moving into their... you could say their Grandmaster scheme, or do they have to change their gameplay completely because of the way First Departure is playing?
I don't even know if they can. Like, it's sort of one of those situations where you need to be able to sort of wind the clock back 3 minutes. But I think that probably, because the other problem now is you've got a Ice Blast that's up. You would normally hopefully be able to make the first couple of rotations on in, as I think we might end up seeing Purposeful go down here. A Blast coming in. That's going to be a jump forward, and this stun's going to come out. If they get one crit right here, this is going to be a kill. Oh, God, he's really close. Is he going to pop? No, he's going to stay alive there. But probably you need to wait until Gyrocopter at this point gets level 11, keep supports on all of your TPs, and just try and do everything you can to get levels up. Because I don't think they can fight into him at this point.
They can't fight into them, but they also need to try and stall out not just the PA, but I think to a certain degree also slow down these levels on Slardar. Yeah. Because remember, there's massive synergy between a PA and a Slardar. Like Winter Wyvern just melted to Miracle just then. He couldn't do anything to keep himself alive. So if you have negative armor plus a really highly farmed and highly leveled Phantom Assassin, these heroes on Phoenix are going to melt before they can even cast their spells.
Oh god, Rubik just stole Ice Blast also, so that's a pretty nice little win for them. They are going to be able to secure that kill on top of the Ancient Apparition. That's about the best that you can hope, and I think that with this spell now, you do have a pretty good possibility to get a couple of quick pickoffs, because the big thing that I was worried about before is they just didn't have the damage to make it happen, even in a gank, even like a 4 or 5 man gank, because the operative person that you would be wanting to take out would be either the Queen of Pain or the Phantom Assassin, and I feel like they didn't have enough. But now with the AA Blast, if you end up ganking maybe 3 heroes, you bring the Rubik, you bring, well, you don't actually have to bring the Rubik, maybe you bring the Gyrocopter and the DK, and try and secure a little bit more farm on your Darkseer. That could be the way to go, but looks like they're going to try and battle here in the bottom lane. Call down committed. That, oh my god, Call is dropping pretty low. This might be the turnaround that they need. They do also have, they were able to steal away from that one Repel, so they have that from the Omni-Knight, at least for the time being. Winter Wyvern is here as well. They're able to turn that one back around, staying alive. This is a nice little combination here. Phoenix doing a good amount of work. Can they actually find this kill, though, on the PA? There's going to be the Splinter Blast coming out as well. Gyrocopter trying to chase, but not wanting to go for it. What a weird little engagement.
Miracle was thinking about going back in, it seems, but he saw everyone had left, so at that point he just completely disappeared. This is the advantage, though, of having a Winter Wyvern altogether, though. Just having the Cold Embrace means that the PA and the Slardar can't really do any sort of extra damage aside from their nukes. They also have the Winter's Curse, so if those heroes, who both being melee, clump up, there's going to be a lot of damage thrown onto each other as well. So I think for Phoenix, they just have they have to continuously react to First Departure, because if they try and go in and fight, or if they initiate themselves, I think First Departure have enough to counterplay. Whereas if they're the ones that are trying to go in and do the have a jump, I think for Phoenix it's much easier for them to counterplay than it is to initiate. He can be spotted out, unfortunately, by the Slardar, knowing that there is well, at least they just spotted him out with the creeps. Although Slardar, oh, you don't really want to be there. Unfortunately, the heal's there, but the curse onto Cal. He'll hit his teammate for a little bit more. Sprinters there, did have enough to catch him out, though. There's going to be the Repel, keeps him alive. JYC looks like he's the target here for the Slardar, crushes their amp as well. Cal hanging around, but I think at this point First Departure doesn't want to go in, as there's no extra damage aside from the Slardar.
Even so, I mean, you committed in that one, the call down, and, you know, 3 heroes on top of the Slardar. They weren't able to find that kill, although they do now also have a couple more heroes. They're going to try and reinitiate. Amp damage down on top of the gyrocopter. Need to be very careful. On the other side, they have brought in the Queen of Pain, who ends up getting lifted by Rubik. I think Rubik does end up falling here. Cold Embrace trying to keep alive this gyrocopter. Now Dragonite on the backside trying to fight into the Queen of Pain. She jumps forward, is going to be able to do a little bit more damage. Doesn't want to chase there after the gyrocopter, as he was getting flanked around the other direction. Slardar is still down here in the trees. We do have a jump forward, repelled up Queen of Pain. That's also a Sonic Wave off cooldown in just 6 seconds. A Blast is going to whiff. Unfortunately, haven't found their other form of initiation. Miracle in the middle of everything. The wall has been committed at this point in time. No vacuum is of yet thrown on out. That's going to be a Winter Wyvern going down. We're also going to see yours truly soon to fall if they are going to be able to find this one. Maybe a body block coming out. That's going to be 1 crit, going to be committed. When that's going to be yours truly going down yet again. Oh man, first departure looking strong so far.
So this quirky draft of theirs is doing a lot of work on the Phoenix, and when did we actually see Phoenix's draft do what it was supposed to do? Where's the combo?
Yeah.
Where's the team fight combo? They just haven't really had the chance to do it.
It's been really rough. I will say, I was thinking about this a little bit earlier as we see another AA Blast come in. Pretty much non-stop action. This might end up being yet another kill. Gyrocopter ends up falling very, very swiftly as Queen of Pain ends up taking out the Tier 1 tower. I will mention that I thought a little bit more about the Darkseer wall, and we saw the stat that ended up popping up. He ends up taking it in 67% of games. You can still do it even without the early level in vacuum, considering the scales better as you, the radius of it scales better as you level it up, just because you have the Winter Wyvern there. So if you end up dropping down the Cold Embrace, you can follow it up with the wall on top of the heroes, and you have the setup for it that you wouldn't normally be able to. But regardless, it hasn't ended up working out for him. Rubik is going to cliff the Queen of Pain here, but that hero does have a blink, and this just means that she's going to be able to farm without taking as much damage, at least for a second or two, as they end up coming over there. They have wards in the area. Oh man, this is being tough right now. I think that Phoenix are doing about the best they can. If you take a look at the way that the net worth is going, it really hasn't been that great though. 5,000 experience and net worth lead at this point in time as they try and make the very first push that they have possibly been able to make so far this game. Still no mechanism up on the Darkseer.
They have all the cells necessary though, so can they get the team fight to go their way? It's going to be completely dependent on how they get this initiation off. There is no blink on Slardar yet, but he is so close. If he can get anywhere near that secret shop, he can just buy that blink dagger, and this is gonna be a surprise. But here we go, jump in. He's just gonna completely melt the Winter Wyvern. No factor here. Jari in the middle of everything. He will not get any kills aside from a Queen of Pain. The rest of his team gonna have to try and go for retreat. Darkseer is gonna go down purpose. He has a purpose in life. He doesn't actually want to die though. He doesn't want to die. Although it looks like Miracle, as well as the Slardar, are going to come in with the crush. Crits are there, and the Dragon's going to be slain. And the only hero that gets out is the Rubik, but it's just a Rubik. It doesn't really matter if he lives or dies. It's a huge win for First Departure, getting the initiation that they wanted, and on Phoenix not having the counterplay there, as their Dragon was slain too quickly, or their Dragons.
Yeah. That was actually, it went okay-ish at the very start of it. Rubik was able to steal Sonic Wave there and throw it right back out in their face. That ended up killing off the Queen of Pain. And the Rubik has been playing really, really well. He almost was able to save the Dragonite also with the lift on top of Slardar right before he was about to crush. He was mid-animation when that ended up happening, and unfortunately, just a little bit too much damage too quickly. So the Rubik has so far, at least for me, been one of the all-stars for the Phoenix in terms of what they've been able to do in their draft. But as you've mentioned, this net worth and the experience lead is just a little bit too strong. Purpose ends up finding on out Slardar as well as the Omni Knight, but seeing those two heroes means that they probably aren't going to be able to find a quick pick-off unless you end up getting the initiation off on the Omni Knight, and then Slardar is just going to stun you, so not really a great situation, as we do end up seeing now an Invis Slardar running by yours truly. If they wanted to here, they could go for a kill. Nice knowing there is they end up dropping on down the Sentry Ward, but they're not going to be able to find that kill.
That would have been so clutch if they actually had if they had purpose there. I think they may have been able to either drop the Slardar low, or maybe even get a kill on him. But the smoke is going to be deployed here by Phoenix, and they need to grab a kill. Oh, they could get Miracle. This is huge. It's got no allies nearby, and look how quickly the Phantom Assassin's going to get slain. He did have an ally, but oh, the blink! Man, he's actually going to be able to get out. Queen of Pain gets the scream off, but doesn't connect onto anybody. It looks like Miracle's going to get out just because the Queen of Pain was there. Oh, the Slardar with the reinitiation, though. Are they going to keep going in? Looks like Phoenix is retreating now. Looks like first departure. They want this opening. They're going to have the chase straight onto purpose. The Dragon Knight. Queen of Pain going to go on first. There's a blink. That's not a blink. That was a vacuum into wall. Also the curse as well. But no one's dead as of yet. The Wyvern gets slain. And all of a sudden, Miracle going to completely turn as he is repelled. And there's nothing that they can do to Miracle. They never mind, gets lifted up. In the meantime, Dragon Knight just gets melted because of the purification. The Crush is there as well. They lose the Rubik. They even lose the Gyrocopter. And also, yours truly going to die to the assassin. Complete team wipe and even a crit to finish everything off. First departure, only losing one. Massive win for the Dire Squad.
Oh my god, that was so devastating. 2,500 gold swing, about 5,000 experience. They end up killing off the Slardar, but at what cost? I mean, and to think that that all started with the catch onto Miracle. He gets away on less than 100 HP. Now he ends up having enough to finish off his Battle Fury. It's also worth noting that he ended up going for drums first. And I think that this is the way, if you're going to go for that Battle Fury, you need to do it this way in terms of these early fighting lineups, because you need to be able to have some early type of sustainability, particularly against the magic damage. You look at what Phantom Assassin is rocking right now, 1,300 HP. This is really the sort of enough to be able to get you through the call down, enough to get you through the Splinter Blast, all of those big nukes. And it's just been kind of a perfect draft for them. Thinking about going on into Roshan at this point in time, a little bit greedy, I do kind of want to say, but considering the fact that we're seeing all of Phoenix move on up towards the mid lane and try and push this out a little bit more, they're not going to be able to get here in time to take Roshan. No wards in the area. First departure, God, they are looking so strong in this game. They've just got all the answers.
It's just because they have all the tools. They have the blinks. They just have all the mobility in the world to work with. So for first departure, because they're going to have this Aegis, I thought they would have put it onto Mikasa so that he would at least be able to go for more ballsy plays, but instead putting it onto Wedding Crash, that's fine too. His Queen of Pain has died a couple of times in these fights, but it means that it won't just be this Phantom Assassin going crazy in the fight. That's now going to be the Queen of Pain, who's hoping to be using up the Aegis, but also getting a lot of extra kills under her belt as well. And look at the aggressive maneuver here for first departure. Going into the enemy jungle, going to farm it up. And if they see any heroes, they're just going to farm it up like creeps as well.
Totally. Dragon Knight did end up going for Shadow Blade, which might be a decent way to get back into this when he's only picked it up first 7 times this patch. Well, according to the win rate, maybe not quite as good, but regardless, I think that it tends to be because it's an item that you need to play from behind it. You need to be able to find that initiation onto somebody, and it's so hard to be able to sort of have the extra tankiness of, you get a little bit of extra damage, extra attack speed, it helps out a bit. I just think it's going to be very tough to actually find the initiation on the target that you want, because Omni Knight is always going to be surrounded. The other hero that you could potentially thinking about jumping on top of would be the Ancient Apparition, but yet again, he's not really showing at all. He's actually sitting on the other side of the map, so that way he gets the biggest possible radius on that AA blast, and it just feels to me like the initiation has to be absolutely perfect for Phoenix here, and they haven't really been able to make that happen as of yet, as we end up seeing a jump on top of Gyrocopter. Everybody's in front of him. They do end up tossing out the Sonic Wave. That's going to be committed to get the kill. Might have been a bit of overkill there, but still, regardless, pretty nice little moment, as we also see Ancient Apparition go down to the Dragon Knight.
Yeah, Dragon Knight, Shadow Blade, and oh my god, the blink in. They're going to try and jump onto He-He's. He gets to heal up with the mechanism though, but looks like Miracle is going to completely melt it out. And Phoenix, they're getting slaughtered in their base, unfortunately, as first departure. Going to give 2 hoots. They're going to jump onto the Dragon, who's going to hide under the Shadow Blade. 22 minutes in, you're being fountain dived, and Miracle just he's standing around the fountain.
Yeah,
so
buying his items.
So at this point for Phoenix, what could they really do? I think at this point they're just way too far behind to catch up to first departure at all.
I mean, yeah, they've got everything they could possibly need. They've got the Lincolns up at this point in time, also on the Quap. She's throwing it onto the PA to make sure she doesn't end up getting hit there. 1,500 gold swing at the end of that one. We're taking a look at team net worth right now, 20,000 at 23 minutes, and it doesn't look to be stopping anytime soon. Purpose here is might think about trying to jump on top of the PA, potentially, but it's not enough damage there. He ends up getting silenced almost instantaneously, jumping forward onto him. He has a lot of armor. Vacuum wall back, that's pretty huge, but the Guardian Angel is going to be able to keep him alive a little bit longer, is still going to be in the middle of the fight. Slardar ends up going down, but so does the Gyrocopter, and now they're looking for a little bit more. Winter Wyvern trying to stay alive as long as possible here, is getting continuously healed, but I think that she ends up going down regardless. Purification was stolen back the other direction, and now we end up having Miracle dropping a little bit low on the PA, but does have the lifesteal. He might be able to fight against wants this. There's the blink away onto the Rubik. That's the hero that's been making all the plays this game so far. Aegis reclaimed in just 2 minutes. I think that Quap, they're making the right move to jump on top of the PA here, and he ends up seeing the buyback on the Rubik. He's going to jump forward, trying to get into a fist fight at this point with the PA. A little bit scary. Purpose might end up going down. A blast is going to connect. That's going to be another kill. Winter Wyvern goes down. Buybacks abound, but 1,500 or 15,000 net worth on this Quap. She is so freaking good. GG gets called. First Departure take game 1.
What a game by First Departure. I honestly wasn't expecting this sort of play coming out from First Departure. I thought their early game would have struggled more during the early game, and Phoenix would have been able to get that early game momentum. But the rotations, the plays, I also think it was because Phoenix may have been a little bit too conservative during the laning phase, not TPing when necessary to really defend those lanes. That might have been the momentum that really brought First Departure into this situation where they had too many items, and Phoenix, combo or no combo, if you fall too far behind, that's going to be it for you.
that would have been made definitively, like, all right, we're going to fight this or we're not going to fight this. A little bit of indecision at various points. Also, not sort of responding effectively at various points with TP rotations. There were a couple of times where people didn't have TPs, but also a couple of times where they did and just didn't end up moving on down there. And maybe that was the call, that they said, you know what, we're not going to fight this. You're dead. You're on your own. Or maybe it was just one of those moments where people didn't end up sort of calling it out and then responding well enough. But it felt like in the draft, at least, they had sort of a clear objective that they were trying to chase.
Absolutely, I agree with you there, but the game and the draft, they're two separate things. So if you can have an amazing draft, which is great, but if you can't execute the draft, then that's a completely different problem on its own. And I think for Phoenix, it was just an executional error for them to not get their draft off the ground. But aside from that, that was game one. We're now in game two. Fresh start, fresh page. Let's see if Phoenix can come back. Going to be starting off with their first pick, Undying. Typically, I don't like the hero in general. He's not as strong as he used to be. He does have some good scaling if he can get an Aghanim Scepter. But until then, I feel like Undying, his early game is a little bit weaker than it used to be, but he's still a very, very valuable hero. So just nice to have that under their belt.
Definitely. I do feel like sometimes people play him a lot more often. At least recently we've been seeing him in the 5 position, which I don't like either. And I think that that's part of the reason that he's sort of fallen off a bit. Because I think that really he can be a solid offlane hero still. But the problem, like you mentioned there, is of course just the tombstone being taken out, and how do you deal with that? And sometimes you end up seeing teams go for these illusion-based lineups, and all of a sudden you end up getting your tombstone deleted immediately, and that's something that I think might need to end up changing with the hero. Of course, Decay is still such a strong skill, and the other thing is that when people play him in a 4 position, sometimes they get multiple points in Soul Rip to get down that cooldown and play him as a defensive support. But I think that him as a defensive support really doesn't do enough. Like, he kind of can heal you, but it requires a lot of different things to be going right simultaneously. And when you compare him to a hero like Dazzle, I just feel like you get so much more out of it. But of course, if you are trying to run something aggressive, he can be a very strong component of those drafts, particularly if you have other heroes around him that create a lot of space. You know, you think something like a Tusk there, for instance, which has been banned out, of course. You drop down the tombstone, and then you end up snowballing into several heroes, stun them up for a little bit, get a couple of zombies that are sort of creeping around everywhere, and to me that feels like a very strong point. But as of yet, we're going to be seeing the Dazzle Spirit Breaker that are going to be picked on up at this point in time for first departure. And still a couple of the big heroes left in as we end up seeing Phoenix take Queen of Pain.
So Phoenix this time going to secure themselves the Queen of Pain. So it may lock them into that mid Queen of Pain, which means that they have some solid early to mid game momentum once the Queen of Pain does hit that level 6. So hopefully for Phoenix, they can get that Queen of Pain online as early as possible. Whereas the first departure, if you draft a Spirit Breaker, you know it's going to be aggression galore. So knowing them, they're going to be going for very aggressive heroes. Now, they're going to be playing up against a Undying. Dazzle and Spirit Breaker, not the best when it comes to dealing with the Tombstone, but with the sustain that the Dazzle has, I think they should be okay and well equipped with dealing with this Undying. First departure, at this point their draft is so open, they could go for anything. Whereas for Phoenix, they've secured potentially a mid or an offlane with the Queen of Pain. Undying, would you say he would still be in the supporting role this game, or would you have to bump him up into a core role this game?
I think that they are going to probably base it off of what the rest of these next couple of bans look like. I think that if you're able to get a space creating offlaner and also maybe a team fight safe lane, maybe something again like you end up seeing that Phantom Assassin. I don't imagine that's what we're going to be seeing, or maybe a Sven or something. Then you can run the Undying as one of the sort of the support positions. I think that if you end up trying to pick up here, it really depends on how they want to run it. I think that I would rather see it run in a core role, but I don't believe that's what Phoenix are going to be doing. Now, we do also have a Tinker ban out. That one's a little bit strange in my estimation. Maybe a little bit of inside knowledge about what these different teams are looking for, and they're just afraid of that split pushing combo that you potentially have. And with this lineup now, actually, I'm kind of concerned for Phoenix, because if they're banning on out these split pushing heroes in the Tinker, although it is a little bit strange that they ban out the Huskar, and then they take a Disruptor, to me that says they want to start going aggro, and then you can start, you know, pushing on down towers, and when you end up having TP rotation, just glimpse people back to where they came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So for first departure, they've got, as you said, 2 very solid supports to work with. They have a Spirit Breaker for their off-lane aggression, but this means that Dazzle and Disruptor, this may end up being a safe lane tri-lane, and that's a favorable position if you're an Undying, because a Undying +1 does generally very well up against tri-lanes. They can potentially get kills, so it could be a very, very good situation for Phoenix, who looks like they're going to be going into the Tiny Wisp combo here. Disruptor was picked up before the Wisp pickup though, so this is very interesting. But for C teams, it's not uncommon for them to go back to that Tiny Wisp, but they feel like they're in a position where they have to win that game. So if it's Tiny, it's Tiny. Unless Phoenix picks up something really different, but I don't think so. I think Tiny's just the better pick in general.
Definitely. Well, and then that might give you an ability now to run the Queen of Pain in the safe lane, and then if you end up doing that, you can bring another hero down there for the dual off lane with the Undying. To me, that seems like a strong combo if they wanted to do that, because, of course, if you did end up wanting to run a dual off lane with Undying, that leaves your other lanes a little bit weaker. You end up drafting the Queen of Pain, getting, you know, the rest of the side of First Departure, thinking that that's going to go mid, and then you sort of shift things up a little bit. Now it's going to be a Queen of Pain against the Spirit Breaker, hypothetically. I think that that actually is kind of a nice little dynamic of the draft here if Phoenix end up going for that. Of course, the other thing is this doesn't necessarily limit you. So if they end up First Departure taking Tiny here, you can always run another hero in the mid lane with the IO. You could run something like a Bristleback potentially. And then all of a sudden now, where are you going to throw this Tiny? You're going to end up putting him in the safe lane where you have an Undying going up against him. You're able to sap away his strength with Decay. But then if you end up putting him in the mid lane, now you're running a Tiny with a, you know, potentially Bristleback IO combo or some other hero like that. It feels like there's a lot of great answers here to anything that First Departure try and do to counter this pick here. And they end up going for the Gyrocopter.
Gyrocopter. So this is fine. It's one of the more solid carries that they could work with. So it kind of feels, did it feel like Phoenix backed First Departure into a corner with this Tiny Wisp pickup?
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like to me. And I also, well, Gyrocopter gives you the potential to fight early, and I think it's in general a good answer to Tiny, just because you don't necessarily have to rely upon your right clicks to kill him in the early game, or rather in the mid game. Once there's Craggy Exterior up, you can just sort of rely more upon your, you know, Rocket Barrage and Call Down and all that stuff. He is vulnerable to the burst damage that comes out. They have a Dazzle, so Dazzle's going to need to be really, really on point with these Graves. But I think that I really like the fact that for here, you have Phoenix in a position where you have a lot of burst damage out at the very start. You've got Queen of Pain with the Sonic Wave, Tiny with the Avatos, and that's what you need against Dazzle. The ability to sort of either, one, take out a hero quickly before he's able to grave, or simultaneously switch it up, and after he graves somebody, switch over to the Dazzle. So I like the draft a lot by Phoenix. That being said, I liked their draft last game, and I felt like they just weren't able to execute it enough. So hopefully this time that ends up happening, and they're able to take this to a game 3.
Absolutely. So the final ban here for First Departure is going to be the Bounty Hunter, which I feel like would have been a very nice pickup here for Phoenix. Add some extra aggression, especially during the laning phase if you have a roaming Bounty Hunter, which is now not going to be available for Phoenix. Final ban for them. Now for First Departure, it seems like they're looking for either a mid or a safe lane hero, as I've seen some teams play a Gyrocopter in the mid lane up against the Tiny Wisp, as you said. He does generally okay, and if the Dazzle's there, he'll be fine as well. Unless they go back for something else, as I said, maybe a Bristleback pickup to go up against the Tiny Wisp, who knows. Whereas for Phoenix, their final pickup, they could really go for anything, honestly. Their draft is so versatile at this point. They can have the core Undying to support Undying, Queen of Pain that could be going into an off lane, or the safe lane, as you said. So I think for Phoenix, there's no real defined hero for them to go for. Shadow Fiend, final ban for Phoenix. Final pick here for First Departure. Yeah. Now, of all the heroes here, none of these feel like a miracle hero. So it feels like this last pickup might be the miracle hero unless he plays Gyrocopter. And you know Miracle.
Yeah, definitely. He could be doing that. I'm a little bit curious now. Also, they end up going for the Magnus. This is putting a lot of eggs in his basket yet again. It ended up working out for him last time. But they don't have that natural synergy with another hero to sort of empower up to be getting a lot of damage. I'm wondering if this is going to be even sort of a DPS Magnus potentially, or a farming Magnus.
It might just have to be a pseudo DPS Magnus, because Spirit Breaker, you know this hero doesn't really do damage. Is there purely for utility? Both supports are pure utility-based heroes. So Magnus and Gyrocopter, the synergy is going to be there. The Gyrocopter is still going to benefit from the Empower. It's just that it's only going to help him with the flat cannon and also just his basic physical right click. So the cleave, it's not going to help him there, but it's still useful. So the idea is there for first departure. It can work out. Final pick here for Phoenix is going to be a Earthshaker, played by yours truly, who he played off lane. This is an off lane Earthshaker?
I guess
Seems
so.
like it.
A very, very interesting setup here. I'm wondering now if this is just going to end up being something. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they end up running a defensive tri-lane with Tiny, and then they end up throwing the Queen of Pain in the mid lane. We're going to have another pause here, unfortunately, which has sort of become a staple so far in the short tournament that we've been a part of. But it's actually kind of good that we have this, because there's a couple other things that are important to keep in mind here. I was looking at Phoenix's draft, and the one thing they did definitely lack was stuns, and that's something that Earthshaker has in abundance. So I like the pickup. The laning stage is really going to be the issue to try and figure out where they run this. And maybe what they're going to end up doing is having sort of a defensive tri-lane here with the Tiny. I do believe that it was Purpose last time that was playing the DK, so maybe it is actually going to be mid. Purpose was the mid player last time, so they're going to be going mid with him. And then I guess throwing Earthshaker Undying together, maybe?
Undying Earth, I can definitely see that happening though. They do have kill potential with these heroes, because First Departure is still running generally squishy heroes, so once you get the catch onto them, you either should be able to kill them off, or at least drop them low and send them back. That's still an advantage for Phoenix. If they don't kill anyone, as long as they're getting their levels, I think that's the major thing for Phoenix. Just get their levels, and if they can get that early Blink Dagger onto the Earthshaker, then that's great. You're going to have even more initiation on your side, and that's more power to Phoenix. So we'll see how these drafts work out. And Miracle Magnus, we all know what we're going to be expecting with this.
Totally. He's a player, that's for sure. As we see everybody move on out here to the side, looking like they're probably going to be in a position to be trading off runes. Maybe Earthshaker gets a little bit too fresh down here in the bottom lane and gets caught out. We do always have the Disruptor there who can throw out a glimpse if things get a little bit dicey and wants to bring on back that hero. But regardless, it's going to be an interesting game. It does look like they're going to be leaving the Earthshaker solo in the off lane. Oh god, this could be really bad here actually. I think Earthshaker is going to run on in, ends up spotting them maybe? I'm not sure if he quite had vision. He might end up seeing them as he's running away, but they're not going to be able to get into vision to be able to glimpse him on back, unfortunately, as Earthshaker ends up heading on out of there, and they're just going to be trading off runes here. But yeah, I'm curious about where the damage is going to be for First Departure. It definitely feels like they're going to need something, either a lot of farm on this Gyrocopter, or Magnus to start to go for a lot of deeps.
So I think at this point, just going to have to keep an eye on Miracle's build, whereas for Phoenix, we know they didn't play that well last game. Let's see if they can get their act together. Maybe they're going to be able to impress us with this Tiny Wisp pickup. It might be what can bring this into a Game 3 scenario, which is the most favorable position to be if you're a Phoenix. You drop Game 1, you need to come back into Game 2 to have that extra chance. And chances, I think at this point, this is their last chance.
Definitely. Well, time will tell indeed. I do have to say again, I love the warding here by Phoenix, placing this up on this high ground. This is going to protect your Tiny from potential early charges in by the Spirit Breaker. It also gives them a pretty good vision if anybody's going to be in the area to try and come on in and help out for a gank in the mid lane. As you see Disruptor hang on out here in the mid area and just going to tossing out those Thunder Strikes. God, that ability is so frustrating to play against since it ended up getting changes to all that extra damage. There's an Avalanche tossed on out, and they are not afraid to get aggressive here early in the mid lane.
And the thing is also with Miracles, he's only running 2 shared Tango, so he doesn't really have too much regen to work with yet. So there's a small opening for them to kill him before this bottle arrives on the courier. But it looks like he'll be fine up until that point. So no kill onto Miracle. He now has Sustain in that mid lane, which is probably going to be the biggest thing for him. Just Sustain, get that level 6 early Blink, and then from that point on, he needs to make things happen. Same could be said for Phoenix on this Tiny Wisp. Either get a Blink or get that early Aghanim Scepter. For Purpose, would you honestly look into maybe getting an early Blink Dagger on the Tiny so he has that extra mobility to work with and not have to completely rely on the Wisp, or would he have to go straight for an Ags this game? I think if he can get a little bit of momentum, maybe he could go for the Blink build first into the Aghanim Scepter.
I think that would be really strong. You don't see as much here, at least, the need for the crazy high damage right off the bat from him, because you have that Queen of Pain that you can sort of rely upon for your early damages. We do end up seeing another little Avatos combo. Looking for the potential for a skewer, not going to be able to find it this time around. The Magnus, as he ends up having to back on out of there. But I think particularly if you compare the sort of damage output You really don't need to sort of accelerate that quickly here for Phoenix. You can do it if you want to, but I think that probably being able to just have that early burst combo is more important and have it exactly where you want it. Because while you can get into position with the IO Tiny, you're going to be able to get that maximum, full length damage from both your avalanche as well as your toss, and getting the extra damage on the fall. It just all ends up working together perfectly. And against the gyrocopter, that's so key to being able to take him out of the fight before he ends up casting off those spells and having that almost instantaneous initiation. I'll also mention here with the Undying, he was able to really harass away this Spirit Breaker who's been having a tough time in lane, and I don't know how well this Spirit Breaker is going to be able to scale into the later stages. They've been able to harass him at least a decent amount at this point. They haven't denied him as much levels as you would have thought, actually. I thought that it was going a lot better, but he is actually already level 3. I'm curious if they're going to try and pressure this top tower once he ends up leaving the lane to try and gank.
They don't really have the best tower push though. It's just a Queen of Pain who can chip away at the tower, but for them to get the tower, the Spirit Breaker is going to have to leave the lane for prolonged amounts of time. And that's not going to happen up until maybe when he hits that level 6, when he gets the Nether Strike, then he'll feel comfortable trying to move around. Although they lose the Dazzle in the process and Earthshaker, being chased up by the Gyro. They'll be able to finish him off there, but here comes the Blink and Queen of Pain. They're going to try and finish off the Gyro, but unfortunately, Gyro gets first blood. So even though Queen of Pain gets a counter kill, is it really worth it to dive that far? I guess it's first blood still on the Gyro.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up also taking out the Dazzle, so he lost a little bit of experience while they were trying to dive there deep underneath the tower, not quite able to handle the aggro switch. So first departure ended up losing somebody. They also end up moving the Queen of Pain down to the bot lane, so she's going to have to take a really long walk back over to the top side here. This is going to give a good amount of experience to the Undying, but it's going to also get trapped on up here. That's going to be a good amount of damage coming out very quickly, pushes him out of the kinetic field. One more bash is all that they're going to need. The right click is going to finish him off, and they're going to be able to get the Tomb Bounty, and unfortunately, because of that rotation, you're not going to be able to see the Queen of Pain get back here for any type of counter kills. So all of a sudden, what ended up looking a little bit sketchy for first departure in terms of that dive ends up turning into a kill on the support for the offlane.
So they end up getting more kills than they actually bargained for. Very good plays coming out from first departure, just to see, just to take advantage of that kind of play. There is going to be a haste rune spotted out by the Earthshaker. Might get picked up either Wisp, and it looks like they will, or is it going to be on the Earthshaker? They could use this as, to help the Earthshaker with the play, but it seems that they are going to be giving this to JYC and the Wisp. So fill up the bottle, keep farming in the mid lane. Miracle's not doing too bad for CS, but he's not having an amazing lane. He's not getting kills, he's getting some sort of CS. Do you think this is a comfortable position to be if you're a Magnus?
Yes and no. Like, the problem that I really see with this is even once he gets level 6, and even once he ends up getting a pretty decent Blink Dagger timing, which I think he will, it's still going to be so hard to find any type of kills, even with a rotation from a Spirit Breaker, just because they don't have a ton of damage in the early stages. I think that probably if you charge on through the sort of combo of the Tiny Wisp, then you're going to be able, with a call down coming in there, you're going to be able to find it, but it's a lot to ask, and it takes a lot of rotations and everything to go right. So maybe it is, as they end up trying to toss on back the Magnus, not quite able to find that. But it's just a really big ask. As I said, yours truly is going to get dove here again in the bottom lane, and after the Fissure ends up getting committed for that one, he's going to have to hide over in the trees, at least for the second, and ends up TPing out of here, not wanting to potentially get caught out as he goes just back to his tier 1 tower.
You can say to a certain degree, a tiny little win there for yours truly, not to die, but to also force out a teleport scroll. So if any ganks happen, Gyro's not going to have that available to help his teammates out. So to a certain degree, you could say a tiny win. But the laning phase, for the moment, it continues. Queen of Pain in this top lane, who did rotate a little bit earlier, is doing very well for CS. 27 CS compared to the 13 of a Spirit Breaker, but it's a Spirit Breaker. You're not really expected to get any sort of CS. He'll be moving into the mid lane. He's getting ready for a charge though, but the priority target here would be the Wisp, but with the Tiny there, it's a little bit sketchy on when you really want to go.
Yeah, definitely, and not really a great opportunity to make that happen, as you do have a couple of illusions scouting on out the area here. I don't know, did he? I think that they might have taken away the rune there. The Dazzle ended up snaking it away from the Wisp, so Tiny going to be without Wisp for at least a second or two here. This might be an opportunity with Disruptor coming on into the area for them to try and take advantage of him not being there. It's kind of, again, A little bit difficult considering the Tiny's been playing a little bit further back now, but maybe a charge on in there could be a possibility. It doesn't look like they're going to end up going for it, though. Just wanting to get a couple more of these levels, waiting for Spirit Breaker to get level 6, which he's very close to, and that makes him a lot more potent of a threat in terms of being able to gank and make these kills happen, as we do end up seeing IOTP back in and top on off the Tiny. Fairly large stacks here also. Stacks on the hard camp for the Radiant. That's going to probably be able to get Tiny his Blink Dagger, or excuse me, Magnus his Blink Dagger once they end up finishing it off, or at least pretty close to it.
Yeah, and with the Blink Dagger, I think that's when you're going to have to start seeing First Departure make the plays. They cannot sit back and let Phoenix just continue on farming, because their draft, as you said during the early game, or during the draft really, they're very explosive. And if you can give them any sort of ammo, obviously they're going to make things happen. They're going to make fireworks. So for First Departure, they need to come online as soon as possible and to make things happen, to not just slow down Phoenix's progression, but to also speed up their own progression, because they're not relying on just the Gyrocopter to be the late game carry, but they also need Miracle to come online as a hero as well. And I think to a certain degree, you can also say Cal is going to be a key component in this, because he still benefits from the Empower, because his melee, even though Spirit Breaker doesn't normally do too much damage, he is going to be a key component in not just disrupting, but also hopefully contributing to that damage output. I think one of the biggest things here for First Departure as well is to get that level 6 as soon as they can on the Disruptor, because if you can get a key static storm off in the middle of the fights, it might just be enough to disrupt Phoenix's draft and have a bit of an opening for First Departure to really go in there and hit the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of weird moves here in the last couple of minutes. We ended up seeing Miracle move down to the bottom lane, cancel RP, and then head on into the jungle to try and farm up a little bit more. Also going to have a Spirit Breaker charge here on top of the IO. They're moving on in to try and take stacks. The call down is not going to hit on anything, and they cancel their charge as they move on there through the jungle, and that's going to be, at least for a second, a win for Phoenix. Going to be able to bait that out. They've been doing a good job of just avoiding these ganks this time around. It seemed like maybe last game there were some nerves coming in. Again, this is the first game that these teams have played, or rather Phoenix has played in officials in just over a month, since I think the Frankfurt major qualifiers were the last set that they ended up playing. And this game they're looking a lot better. I'm really enjoying what they've been able to do so far, sort of keeping it relatively even against the squad that was very much favored over them. 1,000 goal experience lead is the only thing that's really into the favor of First Departure at this point. And considering that, you know, there's a draft here that out of Phoenix, you would kind of expect them to be trying to go for a bit of maybe into the late game with a lot of bursty type damage. I think that they're in a pretty good position to keep on going from here.
Yep. So Blink Dagger has been finally secured on the Magnus, so we'll see if they can make anything happen, as he also is going to be picking up a smoke. For First Departure, are they actually waiting for any other items? Because if there's nothing else that they're waiting for, then they're going to have to start making their moves happen now. They've got no level 6 on Disruptor, which I think is, as we said before, going to be a key component. Dazzle, I think at this point he's fine, doesn't really need to wait for anything.
This is the moment right here, I think. Jumping forward, another strike down on top of the King of Pain. There's the skewer, everything else that's committed. Tombstone is down. It is going to also be a relocate on the other side. Magnus ends up getting Avatos, does end up using the RP, ends up getting healed by the Shallow Grave as well, keeping him alive at least for the moment. The relocate was committed. Does look like they're maybe going to be able to take on out the IO. If they're able to get these kills here, this is going to be huge. There's a call down on top of 2. It does look like they're going to be able to take on out the Tiny. Rocket Barrage can come out in a second. Nice heal, keeping him alive a little bit longer there with the stick charges, and that's going to end up being a dead Undying. Thankfully, the Haste Rune ends up respawning 20 seconds earlier, and that's going to be Tiny getting out of there. But a really nice combination there as Phoenix are able to get thrown back, at least for the moment, by First Departure. Really, really well played there by them.
Very nice reinforcement coming out from First Departure, and also just a bit of a lack of burst damage from Phoenix. If they had enough to burst down the Magnus before he got the RP off, then I think Phoenix would have been golden. But because Mikasa was able to survive for that little bit extra, he was able to set up for the rest of his team, and from that point on, just really shut down Phoenix's movement. So the first relocate, not very successful here for Phoenix. They get most of their heroes killed off. Obviously, Purpose didn't die, so that's, I think, the major thing with the relocate. As long as they don't lose the Tiny, it's not bad, but it's not good for them either. So for Phoenix, still going to be looking for those relocates, it seems. Whereas the First Departure, they've got all their items. They still need a couple of levels, but from that point on, are they still waiting for anything? Because they're still sort of laning this out. They're not they're not rotating aggressively. They're not putting out any sort of aggressive wards aside from just the one on the high ground here. So it seems like they're sort of gearing themselves up for more of a mid to maybe late game scenario with the Gyro Magnus. They don't really want to fight Phoenix right now.
Well, maybe this is the other part of it, is that we ended up talking about the need for another form of damage. As we do end up having to relocate over here, they're going to connect too with the Static Storm. There's the charge on through. Io is going to go down, and now it looks like Purpose is as well. He ends up tossing him on back. That kills off the Disruptor, unfortunately, but the charge is going to be committed, and Spirit Breaker ends up getting that kill. I'm wondering now, honestly, if maybe what we're seeing here out of Phoenix is that, or out of the First Departure Phoenix matchup, is that they're concerned about facing off against First Departure in the late game, and because of that, they're a little bit more okay going to the late game. I'm not exactly sure. It does seem very strange because Phoenix keep on sort of throwing their heads into First Departure's, top lane here, and they really haven't been able to convert on too many kills off the end of it. Like, we're seeing a pretty decent advantage now being built up by First Departure, and it's been off of counter initiations, which is something that's surprising to me. I totally would have thought that Phoenix would have been the ones that were trying to be more aggressive, as we are going to see Earthshaker get jumped on here. Not going to be able to break that one off. They're going to glimpse on back, propose over to the other side. Now Tiny's going to be out of here for this fight, and they end up getting another kill.
And then Tiny has to walk all the way back out to lane as well. The most annoying thing for Purpose. Now, I'm not too sure if you noticed this. He's picked up a Midas.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, he's still going to come online at a decent timing, but this means that he's not going to be as strong as their Tiny typically would if he had a Blink Dagger at this timing, or maybe even components for his Ags. So we're going to be seeing a little bit more farm coming out from Purpose. Will this hurt the Tiny's progression? I feel like at this point, it's gonna hurt Phoenix a little bit, but how much is this going to hurt?
Well, I think it's, again, very strange situation, as we do end up seeing a jump here potentially by the Queen of Pain, thinking about going on top of the Dazzle. If they wanted to, there is this possibility, but I think we're going to see a Fissure in a second try and connect onto here, but I don't think that they're going to be able to find it yet. They're just going to back on out. Call down now committed for this one. They're going to be jumping in the middle of them, as we did end up seeing everybody caught out. Sonic Wave, how are they so low? 20 HP on the Gyrocopter. He is finally going to fall. Looks like Disruptor's going to get out of there, but already the Tiny and Whisper dead. Like, this is just such a weird game, and I'll talk about it in a second, as you do see another charge on top of the Queen of Pain. That's going to be a kill. Undying is going to go down. Also, they end up using the Shallow Grave, keeping him alive a little bit longer, and it looks like Yours Truly is soon to fall also, as one last Shockwave comes through. All right, you're going for this late game draft. You've got Tiny Io. You've got, a Queen of Pain who scales pretty well into the late game, and you're facing off against what is essentially one hard carry core in the Gyrocopter, and then a Magnus who's sort of more of a utility hero, and you're trying to press your advantage when you already have a Midas. To me, it just doesn't make sense. It feels to me like if they're going to be going for this Midas, they would have ended up wanting to try and really delay out the damage, because this is 2,000 gold that's essentially just sitting there doing nothing. It totally, to me, feels like if you're going to be going for early aggression and trying to dive behind the same tier 1 tower 3 times in a row, you want to sort of get a fighting item as opposed to a Midas. I'm not sure if there was a lack of some communication things going on there or what, but apparently we're also going to see a Midas picked up on Spirit Breaker, so whatever, that's fine. And a 4-staff up on Magnus.
There's nothing wrong with the Midas on Cal, though. This hero benefits from a Midas because you get the extra attack speed for greater bashes. So I think for Cal it's fine, but for the Tiny, as you said, I don't think they're forced into a position to consistently fight, because remember, Tiny Whispers, they're not just good at team fights, they're not just good at relocating, they're good at split pushing as well. Totally. And you look at the towers in First Departure, all of their towers are intact. Mid lane, unfortunately, they get a kill onto Heapies, so some good news for First Departure. For Phoenix, in the meantime, though, they're losing their momentum at this game altogether. So I don't know what Phoenix really do. I think they have to change their mindset. Just stop trying to confront First Departure. Go for the more split push oriented style of Tiny Wisp, and then bring it into the late game scenario from that point. Because First Departure's late game, it's okay, but it's not amazing. I guess the only time it'll ever be amazing is once you get the double RP. But I don't think Miracle's going to be going in that direction. He has still gone for the utility the utility Magnus, so we could still see the really early refresher on the mag.
Yeah. I agree with you that I don't think that they should be forced into this, and I don't think that they are really forced into it, but for some reason they're still doing it, which is just slightly strange to me. But if that's what they feel like they want to do, You know, they definitely know Dota a heck of a lot better than I do, so can't really flame them too much for it. It seems very odd to me, the choices that they've ended up making this game with the sort of items and then simultaneously the play style that they've been taking. But regardless, they are going to be able to take another tower here as another Midas Gaming coming on up. It's actually been a lot of Midases here as they're looking for an RP on top of this tiny Wisp here. They do have the charge forward. Earthshaker is here as well. All 4 heroes in the area. If they grew up, he is going to be looking for this opportunity. They're all together right now. There's the RP, followed up by the Skewer. Probably going to be over to the other side. They don't end up catching the Earthshaker into this. Io is really, really low. Echo Slam now committed. There's going to be a shallow grave on top of the Spear Breaker. That kills off the Io as he ends up nether striking forward into them. Is going to end up dying in the end. Unfortunately trades his life for the Io, and this is kind of a bit of a problem, is that you do end up having this great opportunity for a huge RP, but there isn't any follow-up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was very surprised that First Departure decided to go for a play like that, because when you don't have the damage for it, it's great you have the position, but where's the follow-up? So the combination for First Departure, it just wasn't quite there. They got a kill, but I think losing the Spirit Breaker hurts more than just losing a Wisp for Phoenix, because it was also a kill streak.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good amount of gold going back their direction. So First Departure now, a couple of kills going back the side of Phoenix are going to drop down to a 2,500 net worth lead as well as 5,000 experience. Key items that are coming up, we have seen a couple of them that are starting to show. It looks like at this point in time, Spiritbreaker might be going for, he's got an Ogre Club. Normally you don't end up seeing something like a BKB that early on the hero, but could also be maybe into a Halberd at some point in time, going into that utility role potentially. But the Aghanim Scepter are going to be up for the Tiny. So that's going to be a nice little part of this. He is the top of the net worth so far, but has died 2 times also. I guess that's the other nice part, is he did get out of that one gank that came forward with the Haste Rune. But now he's probably just going to try and farm on up a little bit more throughout the whole course of this as yours truly continues to build his way towards his Blink Dagger. Only at this point about 300 gold from finishing that off.
Okay, so now I think this is when First Departure is going to run into a bit of issues where they're going to start running out of damage. Because Tiny is hitting quite hard, but he's also extremely tanky. The glimpses there, the team, are they going to be able to keep Purpose alive? Look at the damage being done to him. Is the Wisp going to be able to keep him alive? Gets relocated out. Tiny will get out safely. 2 are dead for First Departure. They're hanging around there. They've got their eyes set on Queen of Pain, but the damage is not there. Mikasa sitting in the tree line. He has reverse polarity, but damage, I don't think this is going to be worth it. He's still hanging around though. Oh, Miracle, just back out. Don't even bother looking at this. Just don't do it.
He doesn't have a TP scroll. I think that they're going to be able to get here too little too late. It's going to be running away from there. They end up spotting out the Magnus with the Spirits, I think. He needs to be careful right now. Charging on through. Spirit Breaker's in the middle of all of them. Jumps on top of the Io. There's going to be a Shockwave coming out. Nice tether away. The Io's been playing beautifully so far. A nice amount of damage on top of the Spirit Breaker. And now they're going to be able to find on out the Magnus as well. There's the Yule Scepter on up. That's going to be connected. Nice Force Staff keeping him alive a little bit longer. Trying to skewer away. Stunned in the middle of the skewer, but they're still chasing after him. I don't know if they're going to be able to get here in time to keep him alive. The rest of the whole side of First Departure is trying to come on over here and help on out the Magnus, but he's dropping pretty low, 250 HP on him currently, and now they're going to be able to break on these off as well. Earn charge on top of the Magnus. He is going to go down, I believe, from that. Disruptor actually kills off the Io, commits the reverse polarity onto the Queen of Pain, trying to stay alive, but finally is going to go. Now yours truly is getting chased on over by the Gyrocopter. Is he going to be able to stay alive? Echo Slam committed. Nicely done there. I think that they're going to be able to turn this one back around now. First Departure might have overstayed their welcome. 4 dead with only the Io being taken out, and look at the fights continue on here. A huge comeback by Phoenix, 3,400 gold swing as well as right around 4,000 experience. Oh my goodness, last tick of Earn killing Magnus. What more could you ask for in this game?
That's a huge loss for First Departure. So firstly, they lose the team fight in the top lane. They lose their top T1 tower, which is a minor loss. It's not too bad. You lose heroes in the process, it happens. But then to drag the fight out for so long and to lose your heroes again in the mid lane and to lose not just a T2 tower but also put the RP on cooldown, this is not the position you want to be if you're First Departure. I felt like they're sort of tilting, getting a little bit ahead of themselves, thinking that they're much further ahead than they actually are, getting caught off guard with how tanky and how much control there is on the side of Phoenix. And then from that point on, after everything is said and done, they look at everything that they've gained and lost, and you got to be hitting yourself against the wall at this point thinking, oh my god, what have we freaking done?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely a bit of a dire situation at this point in time, and we've talked about the scalability of these heroes. I don't know how well First Departure scales against this lineup. You've got this Magnus who, well, obviously, yes, you're going to be able to make huge plays. Where's the damage follow-up? You need to be able to have your gyrocopter there to really deal it out, and he's not hitting very hard at this point in time, and looks like he's... I think he kind of has to go for a Sanjin Yasha at this point, although that's going to leave him open to have a toss combo that comes out from Tiny. So he kind of needs he needs so much farm right now, and he just doesn't have it. If you take a look right now, Tiny is 4,000 gold ahead of him. He's going to be picking up a AC here probably relatively shortly as he takes on out a 3-stack of Ancients, and probably soon after this Roshan. You need to be able to have the extra damage coming out from the right clicks of the gyro, and it doesn't look like it's going to be there. They smoke on up 4 heroes now. I think that this is probably going to be to go on into Roshan. I don't imagine, well, that's a little bit weird that they would smoke on up with the IO Tiny and then go on in to try and find a pick-off. Normally you end up relocating in for those, but thinking instead that they're going to want to go for a pick. If they end up finding this initiation, this could be huge right here.
They just need vision though. Oh, they've got the vision down, so Undying gonna spot everything out with the ward. Now the initiation, there's Echo, only connects onto 2 though, but they get the Disruptor, and there's also gonna be the Grave and DKB on the gyro, but he's gonna completely melt. And in the process that they get the Undying, which is okay. Can they finish off any more though? Wiz dropping very low, but he looks like he's going to be okay. 2 dead for First Departure. There's even going to be a tornado thrown out onto the poor Dazzle that just gets completely melted. Mikasa Craggy! Oh no, he gets craggied up and he's going to die as well. And Cal coming in from the backside. He's trying to be the hero, but unfortunately the hero's going to turn into a 0 as he will get picked off. And Phoenix, they lose 1, almost 2. But First Departure, they just cannot kill off Phoenix.
Oh
my god.
3,000 gold swing, 4,000 experience. That Craggy right there, because that was an RP. He was looking to go for it. I don't know if he had auto attack on or something, but he had RP up and I saw him click the button. I think he was going for the RP and just wasn't able to get it off there. And a huge full man team wipe. We're taking a look at this net worth change. In just over the course of 6 minutes, it's been 10,000 net worth swing. They do end up tossing on out the Thunderstrike now, wanting to keep everybody around so that way they don't end up getting Purpose dropped off for nothing. He still does not have an Aegis on him, so need to be a little bit careful. He's in the middle of everybody. Just look at the amount of damage he's able to dole out. Is going to get healed back up again by the Wisp. Just trying to keep his buddy alive. They throw out another Thunderstrike. That cooldown is so freaking low. There's the RP that they needed. This might be the moment, but the clutch Yules going to be able to keep him alive a little bit longer. Another stun coming out. That's going to be a jump forward. Are they going to be able to kill off the Tiny? He is so freaking tanky. He is finally going to go down. Unstoppable streak. 1,000 gold going back the direction of the Spirit Breaker, and now maybe going to be able to pick off another hero here. Jumping forward, the Queen of Pain doing the turnaround. 2 heroes are dead at this point in time, but they're able to kill her off also. Triple kill at this point for Kyle. He has been really the MVP so far, and it looks like they're going to be able to take out the Undying as well. A full team wipe in the end, and FD really needed that one. It did come at the cost of a buyback, though.
But that was all they needed. That was all First Departure needed. They needed to win a team fight. They got a huge win, and look at the gold. 4.6k gold going in the pockets of First Departure. That is huge. So that means that Gyrocopter, he's going to be getting his items. He's not getting too much, I suppose. Even though they're winning these team fights, Gyro himself is not getting enough gold to slowly start out damaging the HP pool and regeneration from Phoenix. But it's still a step in the right direction for First Departure. And for Magnus, so for Mikasa, our Magnus, is he going to go for the Refresher Orb, or does he go for something like a Crystallis for extra damage? Because I feel like you can slowly wait out for Gyrocopter to do it, but I feel like at this point, Miracle has to start doing some of the damage too. They could try and wait for the Refresher, but then you're risking everything on a Gyro that might not be able to perform to what the team needs.
Well, yeah, I think that now they might be in a position where I mean, they went for a BKB on the Gyro, which kind of sucks because his damage output, again, is going to be a little bit lower. I'm waiting to see them go for the Empower on top of Gyro. Even though you don't end up getting the Cleave, obviously, you do get a little bit extra bonus damage, 50% actually, based off of what he ends up getting there from it. So that's fairly decent and pretty relevant. The other thing that we haven't seen as of yet this game is a Disruptor ulti on top of an RP. And if you end up dropping that down there, all of a sudden it doesn't matter a ton how much damage you're doing because you're keeping somebody stuck in a kinetic field, and that's pretty great. So I don't know if he necessarily has to go for it. If you get a little bit of extra disable there, being able to have, you know, maybe 2 shots of the flat cannon off from the gyrocopter, that could be enough damage. But it's going to be a big ask, and they are setting up here to jump on top of the IO. Tiny, but they end up getting out of there, relocating back last second, or I guess just TPing. How did they get out of there? Was that a relocate away?
Yes, they relocated up there.
Okay, got it.
No problem.
Well, AC finished on Tiny now, does also have that Hand of Midas, is bringing the courier on over to the secret shop, and it looks like Yule Scepter recipe is on there. Wondering what his next item is going to be. We'll probably see what it is in just a second or two, but he can kind of go any way that he wants. I would love to see some more statty type things on him, just a bit more tankability potentially.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with going for a little bit of extra tank. So we're now 27 minutes into the game, closing in towards a 30-minute mark. Now, is there a timing window for Phoenix to really go for this heavy high ground push? Because they've already taken Roshan, they've got the Aegis on Tiny. I feel like the time to go is just now. They still have a T2 tower, so even though First Departure's up top, they can take a T2 tower, which is fine, but they're not going to be able to push anymore, and it looks like here we go. TPs are coming through as Phoenix going to try and go for high ground. How much damage will they do? Raxes are exposed as well. So First Departure, they need the initiation, and can Miracle get it? Shadowblade has been deployed. They're not going to expect it though. So Mikasa waiting in the wings. In the backslide, hitting it catches onto one, unfortunately, and Gyrocopter he's going to be graved up, going to be doing the damage. Look at everyone in the middle. They lose 3 for Phoenix, they lose the Wisp, Undying, and the Earthshaker, and now Cal going to try and man-fight Purpose, who even though he has the Aegis, Tiny by himself, he's really not that big of a threat, and all of a sudden going to continue on to chase after Queen of Pain with Cal getting the lucky dashes and Purpose. Wants to turn around his purpose in life now to try and win this fight, but it looks like unfortunately with too many heroes around, can he get out? Will he get kited? We'll have to see as Cal. He has his eyes fixated on Purpose. The charge is there. Mikasa chasing on after the Queen of Pain, who's still alive, still kiting up the Queen of Pain, but all of a sudden Purpose turns around, gets a kill onto the Spirit Break, and too little too late. Oh, it's not too little too late. He's going to be able to get out with the Glimmer Cape. Yeah, I think Purpose getting a little bit too big here as he now turns around, and he's going to go onto the Raxes anyway.
Oh my goodness. That is craziness right now. Buyback on the Spear Breaker. They need to get back in here as quickly as possible. He picked up that Reaver, and I think that was absolutely the correct option for him. Ends up Midasing a creep in the mid-swing right there as he turns back around. This is just the thing, though, is they're going to be able to kind of back around. There's the jump forward. Oh, the Echo Slam was not quite good enough, and the glimpse on back. Earthshaker is not going to be with them for the rest of this engagement, but Io is still here and might think about bringing on back the Tiny... it's going to be able to kill off the Magnus, actually. That's pretty huge as they end up shooting on back there, and Purpose now separated yet again, but I don't know if they can take him out. Honestly, he has 3,000 HP right now, taking so little damage. Is going to BKB up on the gyrocopter, maybe going to be able to finish off the Disruptor before he ends up going down, and no, there's going to be the Shallow Grave, keeping him alive a little bit longer. So I thought that he was going to be big, but still, you think about how that fight started. 4 heroes dead, or 3 heroes dead rather, and they end up having to force a buyback by the Spirit Breaker. That Tiny was just so tanky. They end up all dying, but they get the racks for it, and I think that that's almost worth it.
I think at this point just taking the Raxes is a huge step forward for Phoenix, because for First Departure, let's face it, their split push potential, or their pushing potential in general is not that strong. Magnus can do decently well when it comes to pushing. Spirit Breaker needs help with the Magnus and power. Gyrocopter's okay because of flak. The supports are really bad in that department. So now that First Departure has to continuously worry about a consistently pushing creep wave, they can't just go for any sort of plays. They can't go for 5-man smokes out of bases to try and get kills. They can't just take Roshan willy-nilly because the creep wave is going to make things a little bit too obvious for Phoenix. So even though they lose their heroes, and I think that for Phoenix it's just a massive win to get the Raxes at this point, because it benefits them so greatly when playing up against First Departure.
Well, and now also they're going to be able to start getting some items off of it. You know, the gold advantage starts swinging more and more into their favor as you take those objectives. Tiny is getting close to be able to finish off a Heart of Tarrasque, and honestly, I think that he's just going to go on into the jungle, finish that guy off, and now he's got so freaking much tankability. First heart on Tiny this patch. Interesting. That's kind of a neat little tidbit there. Not an item that often gets picked up. I feel like sometimes people want to go for the Satanic as well, just to be able to instead go for the sort of maximum, just getting up in your face and fighting build. But to be able to deal with the burst damage that comes out from the side of First Departure, I think it makes sense. Also, we've been seeing this very long, extended team fights. If you're able to step away for a couple of seconds there and get your heart regen coming back up again, all of a sudden you've got a fully HP'd hero in this Tiny Tiny yet again, who is now closing in on that 4,000 HP. And how are you going to kill him off? You have to take out the IO first, but if you're going to try and take out the IO, you're going to have to run through Tiny. This is just ridiculous, the amount of damage that they're going to be able to deal. And I don't know. I mean, you think about how that team fight went again last time, just about as worst it could, and Tiny was still able to endure throughout all of it. And that was like with the missed Echo Slam as well. It was just all, I don't know. I think this Tiny has gotten to almost an unkillable point.
I think he's unkillable now, but he's not going to be impossible to kill, because
Right.
First Departure is going to eventually get the damage. I think for now, First Departure just has to either win the team fights, which will be ideal, but if you can't win the team fights, draw the game out. Make space, create time so that Gyro gets his items, so that Magnus is able to benefit both Spirit Breaker and Gyro, and then they can slowly start chipping through the Tiny. Because Phoenix's late game is all in purpose. If you kill the Tiny, there's not really that much damage follow-up aside from the Queen of Pain to a certain degree, and also the control for Phoenix. So purpose is a wall, but he can be broken, and First Departure just needs time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's true, definitely. It's going to be a late game for them to be able to really win this, though. I mean, you take a look at the map, it's still it's all of the tier 2 towers still up for Phoenix. Like, they're in a really good spot right now. The best part that I will say about First Departure and what they have going right now is that they have the elements to be able to build into the silver edges also to break through that craggy exterior, which I think is going to be really relevant, and you need to be able to make that happen to fight against him on Gyrocopter. I also like that the Tiny went for the heart yet again, because it's Gyrocopter already going for the MKB, and you didn't end up necessarily wanting to go for the butterfly into that, knowing that that might end up coming out. But just look at the damage that Purpose puts out here on this Tiny. He's so freaking strong. With the overcharge coming out from the IO also, it's just so much damage. Oh, this could be a toss back. Not going to be able to make it happen. There's going to be a skewer forward. He's a little bit caught out at this point in time. Where's the rest of his team? That's going to be a Shallow Grave committed very early. Purpose starting to drop low, but they also have the Guardian Greaves up for him. Eul Scepter picking on up there. Queen of Pain just trying to create that extra bit of separation. The Disruptor ulti's committed, but it's not going to hit onto anybody, as Purpose was just able to walk out of it. Now turning onto these towers. Nice fourth staff, keeping them alive by the Earthshaker. Well done there, charging in on top of the IO. That's going to be a relocate back, actually, but no, she's just going to be stuck here for a second, and it looks like they're going to continue to burst on down Purpose. He's still staying alive, though. So much tankability of the Glimmer Cape, but he is finally going to fall. Raid boss down, as we do end up seeing the Spirit Breaker fall as well, and now they're going to have to content themselves with just the tier 3 tower taken, as the rest of Phoenix does not want to stick around without their Tiny.
But look at Miracle, he's coming in with this, he's got the Shadow Blade deployed, he's looking for a target, but all of a sudden gets spotted at glimpses there into Hehe's. It's just an Undying, then Queen of Pain blinks forward, commits onto the Dazzle, who is able to get the Shallow Grave off. Is there anything to cancel the TP? Yes, there is. Nice enchant toner by yours truly, and the Courier unfortunately caught in the crossfire, can be taken down as well. We've got Miracle in the tree line though, he's looking for a ultimate, but there's no one to really do damage aside from the Gyro, so they need the perfect positioning. Can Miracle find it? No, going to come out from the tree line, wants to get out, gets spotted out, and here comes the Wisp, going to come in and ruin the Miracle train as he gets caught out. Oh, doesn't even get the RP off, and he just melts. Oh, could not even get it. He in the meantime gets caught out by himself and picked off, but First Departure, they're going to lose Rax's here for sure. Gyrocopter and Disruptor not enough by themselves to repel this push.
Yeah, unfortunate there, and we saw also that he actually was killable, the Tiny there was talking about it, but still I think that this is going to be a really great positioning for them. Gyrocopter soon to fall. They do end up dropping on down a nice Disruptor ulti. Queen of Pain caught in this one. Io is also going to be able to lift on up the Spirit Breaker, running away from this one, not wanting to get caught out, or Shaker gets caught, but they also have the Tiny back. If they want to relocate on back in, it does look like Wisp is going to be bringing them in just a second or two here, and at this point, this is a little bit scary. If you end up coming back in, are you going to be able to burst everybody down in time? They're bringing them in. There's going to be the Avalanche toss. Disrupt on back the Tiny. He's not going to be here for the rest of this fight. That's going to be the RP initiated at this point. Are they going to be able to find any more kills? They're looking for it. Shallow Grave on top of the mag. Jump forward yet again on the Queen of Pain. Now going to be able to Shadow Blade on up and out of there. Tiny came on back into play a little bit more. He wants to hit buildings. That's what he does. Queen of Pain ends up killing off the Disruptor. Buyback instantaneously on this one. They need to defend this last set of racks as we do end up looking at the fight recap. Huge wins across the board for Phoenix, and so much net worth on this Tiny. He has 21,000 right now. Another jump forward, Scream of Pain. That's going to be another dead Disruptor. That's a dieback on him. 64 seconds, and it looks like they might be able to take this last tier 3 tower, as they're just so strong right now.
So this is the point of no return really for First Departure. The problem with First Departure's draft is you touched on this quite a lot during the drafting phase. Where was the damage going to come from for First Departure if it wasn't just going to be the gyrocopter? Because I think putting this much emphasis onto one hero to do all the damage is just such a burden, because if the hero can't perform, who are you going to fall back to? You've got beautiful control with the Magnus, the Disruptor, and also just having a Spirit Breaker there for a little bit of relocation, I suppose, during the team fights. understand that Twitch chat is very, very against biasness. So you get a small group of people that will support you, and then you get the rest of the world that's going to start hating on you because you're teamist.
Yeah.
So let's be neutral here and say we want both teams to win. Honestly, for me, I think just having underdogs win, it's a little bit more enjoyable because you get a fresh style of play. You get new players, you get new styles of Dota coming through. So I think I know I shouldn't be biased, but just underdogs in general. Come
Okay,
on.
we'll not
Let's
say
support
who
the
it
underdogs.
is. I will
Okay.
also mention, you know who's really going to win this time? It's the viewers. They're really going to be who wins. That's the real answer. But we see the Winter Wyvern taken first overall, as well as the Io Tiny and the Juggernaut. To be banned out, we're going to not be having the Dazzle this time around, or the Alchemist Slardar Tusk. And a couple other heroes here, Mr. Doom, actually wait until the second phase to be banning him out. You know, this is something that I really love about this patch, is that we saw at the beginning, everybody's like, all right, Doom's completely and totally OP and broken, let's ban him out every single game. And now it turned into another situation where it was mainly offlaners. You saw Slardar banned every single time, as well as the Tusk. And then a third rotation, honestly, into being these defensive supports that are prioritized. Winter Wyvern and Dazzle probably be two of the very strongest heroes in the game, just based off of what they're able to bring to the team that absolutely no other heroes are able to bring to the scene. And I just think it's really cool to be able to have multiple different iterations of metas being drawn out throughout the course of a patch.
It's lovely because you get more diversity, right? Because you see different styles of Dota all the time, and it's fresh. It's better than just seeing one style all the time. Like, yeah, let's face it. There are going to be some heroes that will be there forever. They will always be banned. They will always be picked. But then fresher faces do manage to come on through as well. So with this, Phoenix in the meantime though, looks like they're going to go back to the last game, straight to the Tiny Wisp again. But this time they're going to have a Wind Ranger to complement their draft. So they have Split Push, they have Team Fight, they have a very, very strong mid as well, who not going to completely synergize with the Tiny Wisp, but she does her role well, and she's going to be able to work around the Tiny Wisp. Lots of late game potential for Phoenix.
Yeah, definitely. I'm almost a little bit wondering now if this is going to be a Tiny in the safe lane, then you end up seeing the Wind Ranger mid. You can kind of run them whichever way you want, but more often than not, we do end up seeing Tiny IO mid. That being said, more often than not, we end up seeing Wind Ranger mid. So who's to know? It's not a combo that you often see, as you alluded to. The thing I kind of like about this, though, is Wind Ranger is such a great hero for being able to set up kills with the relocate on in. Particularly if you end up seeing her get a pretty early blink dagger. You blink on in, you lay on down a shackle shot, immediately follow it up with the relocate Avatos combo. And whoever is there is going to end up going down. In response, we do end up seeing the Bounty Hunter taken, and that's going to be able to create that extra little bit of vision, make sure that they know what's going on, throw out the Shuriken, it bounces around everywhere. It's just lovely. And an Earthshaker now also for the Phoenix, so trying to pick up a little bit more of those stuns. Picks are coming fast and furious. Haven't seen this guy in a while.
Well, he still does his job. He still does his job well, but he's not as strong as a lot of other offlaners that we typically see. So Batrider, he's going to be able to isolate that one hero, but I'm a little bit worried about this Batrider pick. There's so much on the side of Phoenix that's able to not just prevent the hero from dying, but to also intercept the Batrider, that I'm not too sure if this is going to be quite the game for First Departure to really run a Batrider. You've got a Wisp that could be there to tether onto the target that gets caught out. You have an Earthshaker with the Fissure, Wind Ranger, who if she gets that early blink, she can go in for a shackle shot as well. Yeah. So Batrider, it can work, but they have to be very aware of these heroes that Phoenix are running.
Definitely. It's a really strange pick here also, just because, I mean, you want to be able to obviously isolate the Tiny, and I think that makes sense, but you have multiple ways to be able to keep them alive, and they take a Viper as a last pick. Oh, goodness gracious. This is looking to be a very scary draft indeed out of Phoenix. And the first game, I liked their draft a little bit more. The second game, I really liked their draft a lot more. This game, I'm going to reserve judgments at least for the second here. But again, we might be running into a situation where we don't have enough damage out of First Departure, at least so far. You've got Winter Wyvern, who's great for the return counter initiation in terms of Winter's Curse. Juggernaut is also pretty good, but we've ended up seeing him go for Battle Furies a lot more often, which is also pretty great for being able to apply the cleave damage during an Omni Slash. But again, if you don't have a lot of damage there at the start, this mid-game, it's a pushing mid-game strat that you're seeing here out of Phoenix. This is what this lineup is built to do. Get early items up on these heroes, roam around the mid lane with the Earthshaker, and they end up going for a Weaver last pick. Very interesting.
What does Weaver bring in for first departure that's going to benefit this game? So let's take a look at Weaver as a hero in general. What does he bring to the table? He's incredibly mobile. It's quite difficult to lock down. So if you don't have the lockdown there to keep a Weaver in place, he can be a nuisance. But he's not really that high impact of a hero, right? He doesn't bring damage to the table very early on. He's annoying. He's good at pickoffs, but Weaver doesn't really come online till about 20 minutes worth of decent farm, maybe 30 minutes if he doesn't have that well of a time.
Yeah, and also the other thing here is like if he ends up going for anything other than a Lincoln's, he is just going to die. Like, you take a look at the lineup here out of Phoenix. They have so much ability to catch. You've got an Earthshaker Fissure, which obviously isn't blocked by Lincolns, but still it can set stuff up. You've got a Wind Ranger being able to have, an instant jump on in there with the Shackle Shot and catch him out. Also, the Avalanche Toss combo that comes in. It all just feels like there's so much damage that's going to be leveled against this hero. He needs to be really on point with making sure he doesn't get caught out of position. And then he's not very tanky also. So if he ends up having to go for a Lincoln's first, now you end up having maybe a Lincoln's first Weaver with a Juggernaut going for Battle Fury. How are you going to be able to keep these heroes off? Like, you're going to need to commit 5 heroes to a gank to kill off a Tiny, particularly if there's an IO nearby to be able to keep them alive. And oftentimes some of the other things that you might end up seeing to be able to deal with the IO is just to, orchid him up or, silence him so that way he can't end up trying to keep somebody alive. But I just don't know. I'm not sure about their ability this game. I really am concerned for first departures draft, and if they end up losing this one, they will be departing in the first rounds. That's a pretty nice little part there too.
Yeah, I think so as well. So it's not just the Weaver issue though. I think the synergy. What's the synergy for first departure? I don't really see a definitive plan with their draft. I guess like the biggest thing is for pick off, but the Weaver last pick really throws everything on its head.
I guess that maybe what they're hoping is, I bet what it's going to be is that they're going to end up trying to chance it with the Weaver, go for a Deso, have the Weaver split pushing, and then you get pickoffs like you said. Maybe leave Winter Wyvern in a lane to try and, tossing out those Splinter Blasts when you get to the later stages. That way the lanes can keep pushed out. But it definitely seems very hard. And they're going to rely a lot upon the track gold to get them back into this game. It's a lot of things that need to go right and only a few things that need to go wrong, and first departure are going to end up losing. So we'll see how this ends up going. I feel like Phoenix's draft is the easier to execute by far. You really don't need a lot to be able to make this work. I mean, Viper is kind of the perfect example of that type of hero. It does look like we're going to be in a little bit of a scuffle here for this first run.
Bounty Hunter will scout it out though, so the rest of his team is going to be completely aware of these Phoenix heroes in the higher ground. Is there a sentry ward on any of them? No, so there's going to be no random sentry ward placement to catch out the Bounty. So I think for now, Bounty will be very happy with just scouting everything out. Weaver in the tree liner and Bite Rider, he is waiting in the wings. Now they don't... Did they catch vision of him? They did ping him out, I believe, with the Viper.
The Viper. And that means that they're going to be willing to go on up to this top rune. And it looks like Bounty is going to be there to try and secure off the early Bounty rune himself. And if he's able to get this is actually a pretty nice little pick-off. It's always a bit of a tense moment there. Who's got the faster fingers? And I think that they realize that this guy is right here, standing on top of it. Going for the hit, that's going to be there, but Io ends up picking up the Bounty rune. Nicely done there, as he's going to be able to walk away.
Yeah, unfortunate for the Bounty. If he did get it, I think it would have hurt JYC quite a bit with that bottle timing. So mission failure, unfortunately. Earthshaker is going to be spotting out the Wyvern, it seems, who wanted to try and go for a high ground ward, but didn't quite get to put it down as they saw the Earthshaker coming back. So it would have been a quick D-ward if he did put that down. So Bounty going to stick around the mid lane for a little bit as Mikasa, Miracle, going to be playing a Juggernaut in the mid lane this time. Up against a Tiny Wisp. Jug should do relatively well in this lane. He can get picked off, but if he's on point with the Battle Fury timing, the Blade Fury timings, then he should be absolutely fine and shouldn't really be taking too much damage from this Tiny Wisp combo.
Sorry everybody about the overlay. I just ended up switching it back over. There's a 2-minute delay on stream, so don't worry though, you didn't miss a whole heck of a lot. Just ended up trading off those runes, and obviously you get to look at the wonderful artwork of the fine folks over there, the overlay production studios. So mid-Juggernaut, kind of an interesting little way to have that happen. Always fun to see this as people are just loving the overlay there in chat. It's so good. Purpose, mid lane, Tiny ended up working out for him pretty well last time around, and Yours truly up in the top lane. Off lane, Wind Ranger is going to get jumped on a little bit here by the Wyvern as well as the Weaver, but Wind Runaway is always going to keep her safe.
So Phoenix ran the Tiny Wisp last game, and it did work to quite a success, right? So with this game, let's just do a quick comparison between last game and this game. Last game, let's be honest, Phoenix did not have the best early game. They went for a lot of commitment for early game pressure, and they didn't really have the best start. They got a minus on the Tiny, which was great. That helped him really farm up his items. So if Phoenix plays like that, with quite a difficult early game, what happens if Phoenix gets a really good early game this game? Do they just completely demolish First Departure?
That's kind of what it seems like. It's sort of one of those situations where if you get a little bit too far out in the lead here, you end up picking up a quick mechanism maybe on the Viper if that's the route that he wants to go this game. I mean, normally you end up thinking about a Viper in the safe lane. You want to get a couple of items, but also if he just ends up getting enough farm and they go for the mechanism, they can group up and push and do a lot of damage very swiftly. So gotta be careful with that. It is also worth noting that Viper doesn't have the best turn rate in the world, and being able to level the sticky napalm on top of him, that kind of makes it even worse. So really needs to be careful in this matchup that he doesn't end up getting caught out there by the Bat Rider.
Yeah, so Cal on the Bat Rider so far is looking pretty good for CS. Is actually ahead of the Viper, and it's just because he's able to really harass him out with the sticky napalm. The turn rate really hurts, and Bounty's going to be coming in as well. Not really the best chance of killing Viper. If they push out the creep wave a little bit more and maybe get a jump onto Hehe's, I think that'll be the best chance of First Departure in getting a kill. Because Earthshaker, he's just sitting duck really if he gets jumped on.
Yeah, definitely. And very careful. You need to be really sure of your positioning, and that's the other thing that people don't often talk about with Viper is the fact that while he is going to be able to do a good amount of damage and can chase really effectively, he's going to get jumped on here. Now Janata is going to be initiated. There's also going to be the sticky napalm as well as the Firefly away. First blood up in the top lane though as they ended up diving on in here deep. A couple of potential for kills. Bottom lane still chasing on out of here. Bounty Hunter might end up going down. It does look like Weaver is going to not be able to get that kill on the Wisp, and Viper just barely able to make it out of there. So first blood going up on the top lane as the Wind Ranger goes down. Almost able to get it here bottom lane as the Bounty Hunter ends up denying himself to the creep, not wanting to take that long walk back to base.
Yeah. So meanwhile, that was all and well in the mid lane. Tiny up against the Jug. Miracle's doing very well, and this is the advantage of running that Juggernaut in the mid lane. He has a bottle, which is going to be some nice sustain for him, but he has the added bonus of having the healing ward. So for Phoenix, this mid lane Jug, he's never going to run out of HP. He's always going to be able to come back to full, and it means that killing Miracle, there's a small window of opening for them to try and get the kill, but it's not the best chance. So if they get lucky, then that's great. If not, then that's bad. Or the Purpose is going to go for the toss back onto Mikasa, and the Avalanche is going to be there as well. I think, unfortunately for Miracle, getting a little bit ahead of himself, thinking he was going to be safe with the spin. Yeah, toss still goes through the magic immunity. So Miracle going to be aware of that now as he gets picked off.
Yeah, I think that he just overstepped. As welcome a little bit too long, thinking he was going to be able to toss on out that thing, the healing ward as well to keep him alive. But as you mentioned, Toss going through that magical immunity, able to find the kill, and now Tiny, happy as a clam, is just going to move on back in here, continue to last hit against the Winter Wyvern, which is probably a little bit of an easier test than against Juggernaut. But Purpose needs to be careful with the Bounty Hunter hanging out over here. They did end up catching sight of him. They're going to jump forward again, just going to Blade Fury a little bit more for posterity, and thinking about diving this one. Omni Slash has been committed now. Purpose ends up tossing out the Avalanche. Unfortunately, that one did not connect, so wasn't able to find the kill. On the background also, it looks like Bounty Hunter was able to get one right click off on Purpose, the Orb of Venom being committed for that, and now as they're going to end up bottle crowing, Purpose heads back to base, but 3 heroes still committed here to the mid, and this is given a lot of space down here in the bottom lane as Viper ends up killing off the Bat Rider at the very end of that. So you end up giving a lot of space to your side lanes, and now Viper getting a lot of farm. Let's take a look in terms of the net worth. And yeah, you're seeing that, you know, while the Weaver's been able to do pretty good getting that first blood up there on the top lane, it's still a relatively precarious situation for FD.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things with First Departure as well is when you run a Bounty Hunter, you want to be very aggressive in your lanes. You want to be consistently there with the Janatas to help set up for those ganks. And the thing was that they spent so much time in the mid lane with 3 heroes, a Bounty Hunter +2. They weren't able to get the kills. He was there for 1 Janata hit. but then that was about it. And that not just wasted Bounty Hunter's time, but it also sapped a little bit of the EXP away from Miracle in the mid lane. So it ended up being a much bigger loss than it would have been to First Departure, because also the Bounty Hunter's suffering because he's only level 3. Bounty needs that level 6 as soon as possible. So if he was level 4 at this point, he'd be very happy, as it would have been a very good timing. Heavy commitment, as they're going to be killing off these creeps that have been stacked up. Not immensely though, so not a huge loss for Phoenix, but they are going to spot out the Bat Rider, but on the high ground, can't really catch him out, but it looks like they're going to try and salvage as much as possible with Purpose. Sitting in the 5-file, they might lose his life. Lasso's there as well. I think this is a massive trap for First Departure. They get the kill onto the tiny Shackle Shot's there. They have Vision of Bounty as he has no mana. Shackle Shot connects onto both, so clutch. They can't catch Cal though. So they get a Bounty Hunter kill, they lose the tiny, and they lose a whole creep, like a massive amount of creeps. Phoenix, that was just not the play.
Yeah, now we end up having Juggernaut here as well. He might have overstayed his welcome slightly, though. Ends up getting the Fissure tossed out on top of him. Isn't going to be blocked off there by the Fissure, unfortunately. And now the Healing Ward ends up getting picked off. Nice play there by the IO. I think that he still does go down here. They have another power shot, which is going to connect. Omni Slash turning around, doing a lot of damage, but not able to pick off the Wisp. So really good collection there. I don't know if he thought that he was going to be able to find that one. Regardless, not going to quite be the play. 600 gold swing back the way of Phoenix. This again has left a lot of room up top as Weaver is able to take on down the tier 1 tower. Going for another kill down bottom as Viper is able to get picked off again by the Bat Rider. Despite, I believe, the 3 points in the corrosive skin as well as 1 in the ulti, he hasn't been able to stay alive down here. Just not enough of an escape mechanism for that Viper.
So it seems that for First Departure, Cal is doing a lot of work for the team. He's the one that's consistently being aggressive, he's looking for kills, and the Bat Rider pick, which we were a little bit skeptical about, is that was really working out. The castle in the mid lane there has been tossed back by Purpose. He's very low to be dumped on by a Weaver who's under the cover of security, gets the ultimate off though, so he won't go down. They don't get the kill onto the tiny, which is huge for First Departure. They really needed it. Shackle Shot does not connect onto anything. It will keep him in place for a little bit longer, but for Phoenix, no kills going in their way, but the same can be said for First Departure, no kills for them.
Bottom lane, Bounty Hunter is going to be able to take this rune away from the Wisp and then turn back around. A couple quick right clicks, that's going to be enough for a kill. Following it up with the Shuriken toss, and Wisp ends up going down. Very, very fighty game so far, this one. And Purpose is getting relatively low, needs to be careful there before he ends up going down. Also worth noting that in the area was the Juggernaut. They have this very nicely placed ward up here on the high ground, which was able to scout on out the stacks and also able to keep eyes on the tiny just in case they wanted to jump on top of them. Also worth noting the wards in the jungle by the Radiant have been noticing these rotations, and it's just been kind of a weird battle for the jungle, and it relatively left alone is going to be the Dire jungle, which hasn't been stacked on up or really fought after. Fissure not going to connect onto the Juggernaut as he just walks away, and maybe going to be trading out towers here as we continue to see FD take a little bit of advantage in this one. Weaver's starting to pay off a little bit. He is the top of the CS, and now Bounty Hunter going to run on into the Earthshaker and the Viper, but no vision in this area. Actually, you do end up spotting out the Bat Rider. Nice little connection there. One right click is going to connect onto him, but not going to be able to find that kill.
So now for Phoenix, it looks like they're sort of confined into a small space. They're a little afraid of getting caught out by the Bat Rider, who has the lasso and is very close to a Blink Dagger as well. So considering that Bat Rider has not been 100% farming, to get a Blink Dagger at this timing is very good for Cal. So good news for First Departure, they're getting their items, their Initiator is coming online very shortly. Is this where First Departure goes for that hyper-aggressive style of play where they consistently look for kills when lasso is off cooldown?
It seems like they might, but we're going to have a bit of an initiation here in the mid lane as we do end up seeing the Juggernaut get tossed up one time. Healing Ward now committed. They are going to be able to have the Weaver come on in. Now, this might be a little bit of overstepping their bounds. Bugs are on top of all 3 of these heroes, and it looks like Io might be the first to fall. Toss on back again onto him, but the Omni Slash has now been committed. 3 heroes just dead. Like that, they were completely and totally caught out as all of the rest of First Departure ended up roaming on into the Ancients and finding those really key kills. The offlaner as well as the mid hero and one of the supports all going down, and a huge gold swing. Also going to be able to take on out the tier 1 tower in the mid lane. Oh man, actually First Departure, despite the fact that we didn't think they were going to be able to group up and do as much early, they're showing that they're capable of it. It's just these quick small skirmishes, not the big 5-man team fights. And also, again, Tiny ends up going for this Midas in this point where I felt like maybe he was going to end up going for more of a fighty build and might end up getting caught also now that they have this really nice ward vision in the area. Are they going to be able to find him though? That's the question that I have. Not able to get into range of Winter's Curse, and Purpose just walks away yet again.
So what's the whole idea behind grabbing this Midas on Tiny? Because the hero farms very, very quickly on his own, just with the combo. Is it just so it speeds up his farm even more, so if he falls behind and maybe dies 2 to 3 times, he comes back? Because that's what we got from last game. But I feel like this Midas is, I don't know, it just feels a little bit wasted on Tiny.
Maybe
You
it's
could
the
honestly...
levels. That's the only other thing that I can think about, but
That's true.
it doesn't seem incredibly strong to me. It ended up working for him in the last game, though, so can't knock it till you try it, I guess. Apparently it's the thing that they need to do. It does look like now Viper is going to be building into that mechanism. I like this build here, but I think, again, it's kind of as we do end up seeing the courier going down in just a second. Bounty Hunter ends up taking that one off, but it did already deliver the buckler. Meanwhile, mid lane, they end up getting the Avatos combo down on top of the Weaver. That was an Echo Slam committed for that to make sure that they ended up getting the kill. Might have been a little bit of an overkill in terms of what they were needing to find that. But regardless, Weaver does go down there in the mid lane. But I think that that's probably the best pickup there for the Viper. But I talked about like the difference in terms of the ideas for what they want to do, because Tiny is trying to scale well into the late game by picking up the Midas and ensure his late game farm through somewhat of an unorthodox way. And then you have Viper going for the mechanism, which isn't going to help his farm at all. It just helps for being able to group together and take fights. So what I don't know, it just seems like they're kind of on different pages.
Maybe they're sort of preparing for a little bit of everything, so if they have to fight early, then at least they have a mechanism to fall back to.
Yeah.
It's not cost efficient, let's be honest. If you go for one plan, then you know to funnel all your gold into that single plan, but going for a mechanism like this, it's a jack of all trades sort of style that they're playing. It can work out, but it depends on whether or not First Departure goes into that style. And I think for the most part, they don't have to, because they know their late game is... Would you say First Departure has the better late game than Phoenix? If you go into a super late game scenario, Earthshaker gets a kill onto the Bounty Hunter, which was a very nice dust. Well,
as far as the late game goes, they were able to spot him out there. I'm not sure how they knew he was on him, but I kind of don't like their late games against Phoenix. I think that Weaver is somewhat of a wild card. It's going to depend on his itemization, because normally you end up seeing that Desolator picked up on him, which isn't necessarily like the strongest late game item in the world. Obviously, he can build on into the data list and stuff, and he does have essentially a crit built into him and can proc on 2 items. But I think that IO Tiny is always a wild card in the late game that can just, you win the game just through being able to superiorly out-rat the opponents. It does look like they're going to be trying to defend this, though, and here in the area, we do have Viper not quite with the mechanism. They're going to be able to commit a Winter's Curse on top of this. There's going to be the Bat Rider able to hit onto him, but I think that Viper might... No, he's definitely going to go down now. No way. And maybe they end up going here for the Earthshaker as well. Bounty Hunter dropping pretty low. The Winter's Curse was committed as IO drops pretty low. Avalanche, unfortunately, not going to connect onto that one. 2-man Shackle as yours truly comes on in, but Bounty Hunter picks off the IO, and it looks like everybody from Phoenix might end up going down. They toss out the fissure, but to what end? Hehez is going to end up getting tracked up and killed, now chasing after the Wind Ranger. Weaver is there for a couple of right clicks. Nice wind run away. The burn has been committed also, and I think Wind Ranger might be able to get out of this. They don't have the ability to chase completely. No Omni Slash for the moment. There's going to be another Bat Rider sticking Napalm committed. Flame Break back. Nice. This actually might be the moment where they're going to be able to find that kill. Another couple of right clicks as well as the Blade Fury forward, and she does finally fall. The chase for 10,000 miles. And it looks like Juggernaut's just going to be able to TP away right in the face of that Viper as they get nothing from that engagement.
Moments like that when you wish the Viper had the mechanism. If he had the mech, I think the Wind Ranger would have been able to survive, but unfortunately, they chased for so long, and even in their base, 15 minutes in, you're losing a Wind Ranger in your own base. Not only the position that you really want to be in, but already we're seeing the weakness of this Midas Tiny again. Because Midas Tiny, he doesn't have the best stats, he can still be bursted down, has a Blink Dagger this game though, so he's not going for the Ags Tiny this time, gonna go for Blink. Much more aggressive style of Tiny, but I think he needs the stats this game. It's great to have the mobility, but there's a curse you have to survive, there's a lasso, there's an Omni Slash, there's a lot of damage sources and control that Tiny has to survive, and for him to make this Blink work, he needs the pickoffs, but pickoffs are not really going in the way of Phoenix this game.
Well, and it's constantly seeming like First Departure are responding well when there's been a fight coming around. They're all going to be able to be there. They're all in the proper positioning. Viper is going to move forward here a little bit, but needs to be careful. Honestly, if they wanted to, Omni Slash was going to be up pretty soon. They might have been able to take that. Probably not, but it's not worth it to go that much further. And we've been harping a lot on the Hand of Midas for the Tiny ended up working last game. We do end up having to relocate forward. Oh god, that was really unfortunate. It was mid-cast animation there. I think the Avalanche Toss is going to finally find it, but that was a little bit crazy that almost didn't end up working out. Time lapse one more time. Toss is going to connect. There's going to be the shackle, not going to be finished off. Io ends up going back on his own. Are they actually going to be able to turn this one back around? We do have the mechanism up on the Bounty Hunter. Can he get there in time to be able to save off the Weaver? I think that they maybe can do this. If they wanted to turn this back around, Io isn't there. Oh god, the gank went terribly wrong. Purpose is going to end up getting Winter's Curse up. They end up fireflying forward with the Bat Rider. They're going to bring them all together now. Purpose dropping low. They're trying to take out the Bounty. He still hasn't used mech, 4 stick charges, and that's going to be a lot of damage on top of him, but I think they get out of this. There is finally the mechanism turning it. Can they get this kill on the Viper? God, I can't believe that this gank started like that, and it goes so wrong. Bounty Hunter is going to be able to bottle through the corrosive skin alive on 18 HP, and now they have the sustain with the healing ward. Oh, first departure. Things going right for them.
That was so clutch. If the Weaver did not have as much HP as he did, if he didn't have the ultimate orb, that would have been the end for the Weaver, but he managed to survive for long enough to get the time lapse off, was able to get on that through, and obviously when you time lapse you get rid of the dust because it was before, obviously cast before, and with that detection, Phoenix can't really deal with the Weaver. They don't have all the disable in the world to deal with him. So this Weaver pickup, it's slowly paying off a first departure, and as the game progresses, Weaver's going to be so elusive that I don't think there's enough disable on Phoenix to really keep him in place, and they want to keep on going as the career gets slain by the Bounty Hunter. He's going to try and jump onto the Wisp as well. Track is there. Purpose in the meantime, he has to keep his own life alive. Wisp looks like he might have to give his own life away. Purpose going to go for the turn, wants to jump onto the Weaver. Can he burst him down? The heal is there. Omni Slash in the back, so they're going to pick up the Earthshaker, spin right onto Purpose and Viper. In the backside, we chased down by a whole gang of angry heroes, and Windranger going to try and jump into Mikasa here, but unfortunately actually gets pushed back a little bit, but looks like he might be able to get out of here. Tiny comes back in with the blink, gets the kill on the Weaver. Finally, Shackle does not land onto anybody, and the slow is going to be there, and they'll kill off Purpose as they focus down the Tiny instead. Ori will survive. No, the HP isn't there as Mikasa finishes him off. And in the fountain again, 18 minutes into the game, and now the T3 is going to be under siege as first departure. I think they get first place at this marathon.
Oh god, and Bounty Hunter is going to be able to get out of here. I think that they probably should back on out at this point. It's a little bit too deep for them to be going, but it just shows how comfortable they are with this. I mean, you had, like you said, literally the Juggernaut kill off the Tiny in their fountain at under 20 minutes into this game. And I want to go back again to that gank that ended up happening up in the top lane as we see Io and Bounty Hunter trade a couple of hits here. The Windranger was mid-animation with that shackle shot onto the Io, and they couldn't get that one off, and they still ended up relocating forward. So it was just such a unfortunate combo there, because they wanted to be able to shackle immediately into relocate, and they just weren't able to do it because he Sakuchi'd right at the last second before they were able to get off the animation, and the kill doesn't end up coming cleanly. They still had the tier 1 tower top that they were able to TP everybody on into, and all in all, it didn't end up working out, and I think that was probably one of the defining moments. After that point, it's felt like every single team fight has gone first departure's way. 14,000 net worth lead, experience lead of around 12k as well. And we're taking a look at the key items that are coming up on all of these heroes. Sanjin Yasha up on the Juggernaut. He's going to be building into, after that, I believe, maybe a Scotty. I feel like that's usually the build when you go stats on Jug. Bounty Hunter also can be building into a Guardian Greaves now. He's just picking up the recipe and flying out to himself. We're going to see on this Weaver, he's going to be going for probably a Lincoln Sphere in a second now, already having the urn. They're just in such a great spot as we end up getting the Aegis now up on the Weaver. They're completely and totally ready to go.
I really don't see a way for first departure to really lose this game unless they have a really, really bad team fight. So for Phoenix, the game is looking horribly for them. They're behind by so much. They need so many items to really come back into the game, and unfortunately for them, not in the same spot as last game where they were relatively even. They have fallen quite far behind, and we have Miracle looking for a kill with the invisibility rune, it seems. Omni Slash is off cooldown. You can kill the Viper, it's fine. Obviously looking for a juicier target, but I think this is all he's going to be able to get. Unless he hangs on to it for now. Will show himself, so no Omni Slash kills.
I mean,
so for Phoenix, what do they do now? Do they
Well, one thing they need to do is get a Blink Dagger on Earthshaker. It's 20 minutes into it and they haven't found it yet, which isn't like the worst timing in the world, but it's not very good. And they can't really fight into this without that. Like, that spell, Echo Slam, being able to fight against high ground is so important for this lineup. They're doing the best that they can right over here with the IO Tiny, trying to do their split push game, but it's still a big ask for them to be able to solo that completely and totally on their own, as you have the rest of First Departure pushing on into the tier 2 tower here. It's just ridiculous. That being said, comebacks have been bigger than this before, as we do end up getting a jump forward. There's going to be the Flaming Lasso onto the Tiny. Guardian Greaves coming out. That's going to keep it a little bit longer. Nice relocate. Keeping alive their Tiny. That is going to be a dead IO in just a second or two, though. I believe they end up killing him as he ends up coming back here. No real way for him to get back alive, I don't imagine. But that's worth it to be able to keep your Tiny alive.
Yeah, I think at this point, just drag the game for as long as possible and hope that the Tiny's able to accumulate enough items so that he's in a similar position to last game. So that he's... a Phoenix... Look, honestly, for them...
The Viper is.
Oh dear. Omni's not committed. Easy kill into the Viper. Mechanism or not, he was going to go down. For Phoenix, for them to come back, they're going to have to get items on both the Tiny and the Wind Ranger. And yours truly is not doing too bad for farm. He's got a lot of utility. He's going to be there for the catch. Still needs his own damage source. And that's quite a ways away for the Wind Ranger. Tiny's doing okay, but he's got a minus. You've got to be expecting some sort of farm going his way. High ground defense for Phoenix, how good do you think it is? I think it's okay, but it could be better if they get that blink on the Earthshaker.
Definitely. The other big problem, of course, that you have is that there's this Bat Rider that has a blink as well as a force and soon to be BKB. So as soon as there's an opportunity there for any type of vision, which they're going to be able to get through the Bounty Hunter onto the high ground, they're going to be able to jump forward. Also worth noting, they have this Observer Ward in the enemy fountain that they've had for roughly, what, 4 or 5 minutes so far. That's going to end up probably expiring before D-Ward, so that's kind of just a nice little part of that as well. It doesn't actually create the best vision in the world, but maybe they're going to be able to see somebody over there on the other side and at least know something of what's going on. That's not a spot that's usually D-Ward. You do end up seeing the Flaming Lasso on top of the IO. They are going to kill off the Bounty Hunter from this, but can they get this kill? If they actually take out this Bounty Hunter, it's a nice, or excuse me, the Bat Rider, it's a good chunk of gold going their direction. One last right click is going to be able to finish them off, but that's 900 gold and the gem.
Oh, a purpose? Oh no, never mind, he's not going to die as the team was coming in his way. So First Departure, they're underestimating the damage output of the Tiny, thinking that the Bounty and the Bat was going to be enough, but then they lose the Bounty too quickly, and the Bat by himself up against a Tiny, you don't want to be anywhere near a hero like that. So it's a major win for Phoenix. That should not have happened. First Departure, I think that was just a little bit of cockiness. That really should not have happened. Purpose should put the gem back though, as I think he's about to die with it. Oh dear. Oh, Blink's out.
Yeah, that's a good decision. If that attack ended up hitting onto him, he definitely would have been dead. It's still a 15,000 gold lead as well as 12,000 experience, and I don't really see them having the pieces to be able to come back into it as of yet. But again, as you said, a couple more sort of failed ganks like that, and you're going to end up being able to come back into this game. Viper now has been able to pick on up the mechanism a while ago, as we talked about. IO doesn't really have that much that's really sustaining him a ton. The Aghanim Scepter on Tiny is good, and he also has the Midas, which has allowed him to keep up and farm with the Juggernaut. It's worth noting that he really has been able to find his, his farm throughout this game, and is going to be building into what looks to be a Manta next. Just wants to be able to, create that extra bit of initiation, or extra bit of damage coming out from him. Split pushing ability also. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just that he can leave those on towers and right click them down. But also, we talk about how deadly the split push game is from an IO Tiny. They have only taken one tier 1 tower, and they are not really looking to be in a position to be able to take any more. So I'm, as we've talked about, very, very concerned.
The game is still being stalled out there. I think that was the major thing for Phoenix. They still have a chance to farm, they're still getting items, and it could be this small glimmer of hope for them. Aegis has just been expired as well for First Departure, so really no way that they want to go high ground without it. They could if they want to, but there's a high risk of them losing more than they bargained for. So I think at this point, First Departure, just keep on farming, keep bullying Phoenix back into their lane, get ahead, wait for the next Roche, and then from that point on, they can just try and push up high ground and see what they can get. I would like to see the Deso pick up, and it looks like it is going to be picked up on the Weaver very shortly, and that will speed up the tower pushing process for First Departure.
Yeah, definitely. And Juggernaut's getting pretty large as well. Oh my god. 15k net worth, like 99.2. Yeah, it's a pretty big, almost insurmountable lead, but as we said, that 0.8% though, that's what it's all about. So you end up having a TP back again. Probably, as he ended up already getting that Orb of Venom, it's going to end up being a Scotty on this Juggernaut. They're chasing here after the Earthshaker, seeing if they can be able to find their possibility. That's going to be an IO relocate on in with the Tiny, turning around, trying to chase on in after this Bounty Hunter, or excuse me, the Bat Rider. That is going to be a kill onto the IO, I believe. And now with no way out of here, Purpose is going to end up going down. Another 2 quick kills for the Bat Rider as he ends up chasing further. They are tracked up now on this Earthshaker. Are they going to be able to break the TP, not getting into range? Unfortunately for the Shuriken, because of the nice fissure. And now chasing after the Viper, I don't think they find this kill, but a 2,200 gold swing, and it looks like the potential, at least, for taking racks, as there's no buyback on this Tiny.
And they don't know that either, so the moment they hit the town, they realize there's no buyback. They're just going to go completely ham. Shackle does land onto Mikasa as well as that creep, but it's just going to slow down the push. It's not really going to be doing too much, and now the damage is going to be thrown out onto this tower. Phoenix, they've got 26 seconds to stall this out, but they just don't have the best heroes when it comes to defending high ground. You've got an Earthshaker that can fissure it up, that's fine. Wind range doesn't really do too much. Viper's not the best high ground defense as well, so spells are being spammed. Is it going to be enough though? First T3 of the game is going to be taken down by First Departure. We're very happy about that. Now 7 seconds left on the Tiny. This is very risky now. There's no Aegis. If anything latches here for Phoenix, they could potentially get some very important hero kills. But the Rax is under siege as the melee Rax almost gone. Phoenix, where's the initiation? Purpose is here. Blinks forward, gets only one avalanche, but onto the onto the Weaver, who gets the ult off, so it really doesn't matter for him as he's able to get out. Rax has been taken. The fight is there, straight onto the Viper, who's not the best target, but he was the closest one. And they should be able to get the kill onto the Viper. No, Viper's going to be able to get out safely because of the Wisp, relocate, and Purpose just hitting bugs at this point, and the rest of his team, they're being kited around by all these spells by First Departure. They're just walking all over these heroes, and relocate's going to be there as well as the Viper and Wisp. Get into the fight. Shackle finally lands. They get one hero. That's going to be the Weaver. Can they get any more? Winter's Curse be connecting onto Hihi, who's the Earthshaker. He's pretty tanky. Now we're cast in the middle of the fray. Wants to try and jump onto these heroes at Purpose. Trying to turn around and fight, but there's the Shackle. Lands onto Mikasa and a creep. Again, can they finish off these heroes? They're trying to turn. Purpose being hit by the Omni Slash. It's going to completely lash onto the Wind Ranger, but Purpose too slow to do anything. Toss back. They will end up losing the Tiny. Buybacks are going to have to be there as Earthshaker going to go down. Buybacks are by Viper and Wind Ranger, but with no damage items, they can't finish these heroes off. They only got the Weaver kill, and they still lose their Rax. They're still going to lose another Rax. I think this is it for Phoenix. The gas is out.
Oh my goodness, they're just tearing through them. There's not really enough to be able to have any type of reasonable sustain against this. We talked about the Scotty pickup by the Juggernaut. It came to him in the middle of that fight. Potentially you end up seeing the Courier get picked off, and it doesn't go like this, but at 2,500, nice Shackle there. They're going to be able to cold embrace him though, and that's the power of being able to have the Winter Wyvern up against the Wind Ranger. Io is going to go down there. Juggernaut gets the kill. Yours truly dropping so quickly as all of the damage is piling up. Another kill here. Killing spree for the Winter Wyvern, and somehow the Juggernaut survives throughout all of it with that healing ward going to town. Everybody's dead right now, and you're going to see them just play the safer route, going back for the tier 3 top. They can sustain against this, no problem. Earthshaker still does not have a Blink Dagger and is not going to be in a position to be able to make any type of meaningful Echo Slam as the melee barracks is about to fall. The Deso is all up, and I think that this might end up being the end here for Phoenix, who ended up looking good in the second game. They were really putting and showing their stuff throughout it, but not quite enough damage in this draft, not quite enough ability to interesting item decisions as well. All in all, I think they put up a good showing as the Avatos combo does end up going down on top of the Juggernaut, but the Winter Curse to interrupt all of that damage, and Purpose is starting to fall pretty quickly. Craggy Exterior is going to be able to create a little bit of time for him to stay alive, but GG ends up getting called as the rest of Phoenix ends up dying. Take a look at the net worth at the end of all of it. 35,000 experience and net worth lead. Huge turnaround there, and First Departure are going to be moving on in this tournament.
So for a lot of people, this is pretty much to be expected, but I wasn't expecting Phoenix to game 2 scenario.